easy operations a bit more challenging, a lot more challenging. Especially if, in fact, you're caring for people in a hospital, if you're in some sort of urgent care situation, etc. Urgent care people there, ready to provide medical assistance immediately. And if you're on the Upper West Side, that's not an option for them as well. Yeah. Look at this picture. That's not something that you see in New York City all that often. Yeah. It's lights out. And if you're seeing this picture, that is not Central Park. On the right-hand side of your screen, that is part of west side of Manhattan. In the dark tonight, since about 6:45, that is when the lights went out at most businesses and homes along the west side. At this point in time, some mechanical malfunction, we believe, around West 49th Street and 11th, between West 49th, between 11th and 12th Avenues on Manhattan's west side. You're looking at here, I think, this is a subway platform. So, well, the Twitter handle's 2 trains, so I guess, so I'm guessing it's, the 1, 2, 3. So this is what, earlier this evening, what strap hangers exiting some trains in the city, it's what they saw when they got off the train. Pitch black platforms, because we lost power, as I said, around 6:45. Some trains are running tonight. But the advisory from the MTA was, if it's at all possible, avoid the subway service underground if you can, because the platforms are dark. So the trains might be running, but if you're looking at a dark platform, it can be pretty treacherous in a subway platform that has no lights, and that's not a place where you want to take a gamble. So please follow the advisory from the MTA. Avoid the subway, underground subway stations if possible. Yeah. And some of the other casualties of the night, as we reported to you earlier, Sandy Kenyon, who's normally our entertainment reporter tonight, he's a news reporter tonight. Is out there reporting the news. Many of the theaters on Broadway, this is the theater district you're looking at right here, they are dark as well. Sandy described being at the theater at where Hamilton plays, and he says he talked to a cast member, or I guess the head of the head dancer there. Yeah, the choreographer there, perhaps. Who said they came out on the stage, they were singing, warming up, and then finally they just said, okay, you guys, not tonight. Everybody's got to go home. Yeah, and in a place where the show must go on, it takes a lot to put an end to a Broadway show. Yeah. But this here, obviously, outside one of the theaters there, and you can see hordes of people perhaps recording the announcement that, sorry, there will be no show tonight. And I'm guessing there are a fair number of people who are wondering what are they going to do about getting their money back. Yeah, I think I see what it is. There are some folks performing there. It's probably some of the Broadway stars singing there in the middle there. And hey, you're not getting a show on stage, so they got this street side entertainment, at least for a short time tonight. There was one source of power did not fail tonight. Yes. Manhattan Hinge. That continued. Was tonight. So the sun did set spectacularly. We saw it earlier this evening that some folks out in the street trying to get that perfect shot. There you see it. Yep. Eyewitness News meteorologist telling us during our 6 o'clock broadcast that the sun would set shortly before 8:30 tonight. And perhaps there were more people out on the street than normal because of the situation there to sort of document and watch what might be the only highlight of the night. Yeah, I think this was near Carnegie Hall is what the producer was telling us. Because I kind of heard music there in the background that sounded absolutely beautiful. These folks making the best of the evening. Yep, recording it there. We saw the same scene, the scene that we saw outside the theaters. You and I saw it on the Upper West Side, outside movie theaters as well. Some people that we talked to, they were actually in their seats, ordered their popcorn, got their soda, and they were ready to enjoy a nice movie, and the lights went out. Yeah. And then they got the announcement, if you could exit the theater, please, orderly. And they did, out onto Columbus Avenue. Everyone seemed to be A-okay at the moment, but again, that was only a few minutes into it. Yeah. A lot of people wondering, what they're going to do about getting their money back or getting a refund. I think that's the last concern at this hour. Yeah. And then this scene. Yeah. This is one of pedestrians we've seen along the Upper West Side. You see traffic lights out as well. They were trying to help out, trying to make sure traffic kept moving. Nobody got a hit
injured out there, which we see that all the time.
Yep.
When we've found ourselves in this situation before, New Yorkers are pretty resilient, and they'll get out there and try to help.
New Yorkers want to keep moving.
Yeah.
Even if there's a power outage, but some good Samaritans. This is right outside the 66th Street subway station. We saw him. We saw 2 or 3 people actually doing this, and then we had some other video of the NYPD wearing bright colored jackets now, directing traffic as well. If you are in fact heading out, here's the scene outside the movie theater on the Upper West Side. This is on Broadway.
And then this was early enough into the power outage. I think that everyone was hopeful that, 20, 30 minutes we'll be back. Again, now we are going on 2 hours, 2 hours, 45 minutes, and
still no word on specifically when the power is coming back on or what it was, other than what the mayor said, a mechanical problem that seems to be what went wrong here. But
and the emergency vehicles you see here, the FDNY telling us tonight that they have just really been inundated with emergency calls. Some of those calls, people stuck in elevators in their buildings when the power went off. Mayor de Blasio on the phone with us just a short time ago said there are at least 2 trains. One of them, he believes, is near the 59th Street station that are lost power in the tunnel. He indicated that New York first responders had gone to check on the folks in that train. They're okay. There's air conditioning in the train, and they are now working on a plan to get everybody off those trains, back onto the surface.
Well, look at this. This is video we hadn't seen before. People still directing traffic, and it looks like they're using some sort of glow stick to sort of help move cars along.
Yeah, so you can also see them.
So you can see them, yes. I mean, it's good to direct traffic, but you want to be safe as well.
Yeah.
So to make sure that you're seen, it looks like they've fired up some glow sticks to make sure that the drivers can see exactly what they're doing and when they're waving them through. Thanks to Mike Bennett on Twitter for sending us that video as well. If you're venturing out tonight, please be careful, because it's dark out. The street lights are still not working. Stay on the sidewalks, and if you have to cross the street, be extremely careful. Good Samaritans are out there. Police are out there. People are trying to make the best of a bad situation. If that involves playing music, it is what it is. But please be safe as you head outside tonight, if you, in fact, have to head outside.
Yeah, we've talked about the trains. Now, we're being told tonight that, despite the blackout, at least some subways are running through the affected area. That would be Manhattan's West Side. We're told the number 2 train running along the West Side was packed at the station near Lincoln Center, that station at Lincoln Center. But the platforms, as we've said, indicated they were very dark. Yeah, this must be that.
Yeah, this must be the number 2 platform. And what we've heard before is that when the power went out, the trains were going to the first stop that they came across to stop and let passengers, strap hangers, off the trains. The number 2, if I know my subway, doesn't normally stop at 66th Street.
No, it doesn't. It usually stops at 72nd. Yeah, that's the express train.
Right. So this one came to a stop there. People were asked to exit.
And take a look. You see, these trains are packed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially if you consider, it's not surprising they're so packed, especially when you consider the fact that not a whole lot of trains are running tonight.
And this looks like people getting on the train. So again, it's one of the few trains that's still moving. And you have to hope and pray they have air conditioning in there as well. Yeah, the second, there's the number 2, the express. If you go down, please be careful into the platforms. Yep, this is the Lincoln Center station. There it is.
Yep.
Because the platforms, as you can see, are dark. So please be very careful as you make your way out and about on the west side of Manhattan.
Yeah, and just an indication of the days that we're living in. We're also being told that riders are telling us Uber prices have spiked.
Which would be an indication as to why people are heading towards the subway.
Yeah, because they decided it's too far to walk and too expensive to ride.
This here, another one of the many people, Good Samaritan, out on the street directing traffic. Again, let's give you the parameters of how widespread this is. It's running on the south side, 42nd Street, from 5th Avenue all the way to the Hudson River, north to 72nd Street. So that's a large swath portions of Midtown and the Upper West Side of Manhattan without power. We do not know yet specifically what it was that led to the power outage, but according to the mayor, who spoke to us a few minutes ago, there was some sort of mechanical problem. We do know that there was a transformer fire along the west side of Manhattan at 64th Street and West End Avenue, and that the FDNY responded to that. But again, no clear. We know that the outage came after the transformer fire, so perhaps that's the reason why there's no electricity. And
we've got reporters around the city tonight talking to New Yorkers, letting us know what the situation is where they are. Sandy Kenyon is one of those reporters, and he's in Times Square tonight. Sandy?
This is really, Joe and Sandra, a tale of two Times Squares. Take a look. Over here on the west side, it is dark. That is the west side. The power has been out. And if you go over to the east side, you will see the power is on. There are lights in the shops. Now, we just spoke to folks here who came into Times Square, and they said it was surreal. It was unusual. It was like nothing they've ever seen before, because one half of the crossroads of the world was dark and the other side was light. Now, we just came from over there, and down that street is the Marquee Theater, which is home of Hamilton. And of course, the Marquee, so lit up on a Saturday night, was and still is very dark. Now, this is the scene here in Times Square. You can see emergency vehicles have been going through. As we've been standing here these last few minutes, they have been having a little better luck getting through than they did about half an hour ago. But you can see it's incredibly congested here. Once again, if you look down the way, you can see half of Times Square dark, the other half is light. Now, a lot of people showed up for Broadway shows, and they came there early, right around the time the blackout happened. The show Marquee went dark. The cast of Hamilton was inside, and they told us that they were performing. When they saw the lights go down, they gathered on stage, waited for instructions, and then they were sent home. So those shows, those Broadway shows, have been canceled. Here in Times Square, it is still half light, half dark, and of course, so many other issues around the city. And that's what these ambulances that you've been hearing about are trying to address, trying to get through. And I cannot tell you or stress enough that they are moving through a lot quicker than they were, say, about a half an hour ago. We'll stay in Times Square, monitor the situation from here. But right now, I'm Sandy Kenyon, Channel 7 Eyewitness News. Back to Joe and Sandra in the studio.
Sandy, thank you very much.
Wow, great job there, Sandy. And what clearer evidence of a dividing line do you need than one side of Times Square with power and another side of Times Square without power?
Unless you're taking a look at that picture that
you
just saw. Well, this is Times Square. It's what Sandy mentioned, that the right side of your screen, dark. That left side, which would be the east side, more or less, there's light over there, so it mirrors exactly what Con Ed and the city are reporting. This picture, again, clearly illustrates just how dark it is along the west side. Con Ed, more than 43,000 customers, and we just want to point out that that is customers.
Yes.
That is not individuals, which means there's probably hundreds of thousands of people affected by that tonight on that west side of Manhattan. 72nd Street down to the 40s, from 5th Avenue over to the Hudson River. That is a pretty good size area. I think Joe said it before, it's the size of many cities in this country.
Did you see an indication that there will be a news availability at 9:45 p.m.? So
around 9:45.
Yeah, right around 25 minutes from now, there will be some sort of news conference and a press briefing. I'm guessing and hoping that we here in the newsroom will wire that up live to bring it to you so you can get the information as we get it. But again, as we are now more than 2 hours into it, we're still looking for some answers, as many people are, as to what it was that specifically led to this, how it happened, and when the power will be restored.
Yeah, nobody can tell us more about what's happening around the city tonight than those folks that were out there, either on the street, in the movie theaters, or perhaps on a train when the power went out. Hillary Sams is on the phone with us right now. Hillary, this is Sandra Bookman and Joe Torres.
Hey,
Thanks
Hillary.
so much for talking to us.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to.
Which train were you on, Hillary, and what happened? And what time was it?
7 o'clock. I was on an F train headed north, and we were headed towards the 57th Street stop, and we didn't get there. We stopped underground for about an hour.
When you say you stopped, Hillary, was it a sudden stop or was it a slow, gradual slowdown until you came to a stop?
It was a gradual slowdown, and I think everyone thought that it was just a delay, and then it got to be half an hour, and then an hour, and then they told us that there was a power outage in the station ahead of us.
And then what will you do? How you're not still on the train, are you?
Oh no, I got off the train. I have a friend in town who's visiting, and I kind of was talking to him during the time that we were underground.
Well, he'll have a night to remember on his visit to New York City. How was it, Hillary, that you and your pal actually got off the train? Were you asked to leave? Did it pull up to the platform? Explain it to us, if you would.
Sure, of course. An MTA employee came to every single car, and he said that we were all going to walk to the front of the train. And the very front of the train is what pulled into the station. And so we all had to walk through the subway line, or through the train, and then exit out in the front car.
And was it an orderly exit? How did people respond?
People were actually, they were very understanding. The MTA employee was very calming and explained everything that he could. He was very good at keeping everyone calm, and I think everyone was just ready to get out, so everyone was happy to listen.
What was your ultimate destination, Hillary? I mean, how far were you from where you were supposed to go?
Pretty far. I was headed back to Queens, and none of the other trains were working, so I ended up having to take a bus with my friend.
Okay. And how were you feeling when this was going on? Just confused or a little nervous, or?
There was about halfway through the hour that we were stuck. They told us that it was because of a power outage, and they said, worst case, we'll have to evacuate. And I've never done that before. I had no idea what that meant. And so I got a little nervous, but they never gave me a huge reason to worry.
Yeah.
But it was a little nerve-wracking when they said we might have to evacuate.
And coming out through the station, so were you at 57th when you evacuated, and did you come out onto a dark platform? What was that like?
We came out on the 57th Street into the station, but the entire actual station was dark.
Yeah.
The emergency lights were on, but people had like their flashlights on their phone, and people were talking to each other. It was all very strange.
And you said you got a bus back to Queens. Was that?
How far into Queens did you have to go, Hillary? Just curious.
Pretty far into Queens.
Okay.
Near Flushing, I think, is the neighborhood.
Flushing. And you got back, you were able to get the bus and get back. And Hillary, are you a native New Yorker? Have you ever been through a power outage here before?
I haven't. I've only been here for about 2 years, but this was my first one.
Okay.
Well, you're a New Yorker by now, Hillary, so certainly reassure your pal that we're a resilient bunch here in the Big Apple, and that this doesn't normally happen every day.
Oh, absolutely. I have let him know.
Now you've got a story to tell.
Exactly, and he does too, or she, whenever they head back to their home. Hillary, thanks for talking to us. Glad to hear that you're safe and you finally made it back home.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for talking to me.
You got it, Hillary. One of many New Yorkers trying to deal with a power outage, and she was on the subway.
Yeah, and her story mirrors some of the stories that we heard earlier tonight with folks, trains here on the west side doing the exact same thing. They were in cars farther at the back of the train. They got an announcement from the MTA. They had to come up to the first car. That was the only car at the that made it to the platform, and they all came out through that train car. And I think you made a good point. That does allow you to control the flow of traffic. It allows the MTA to get everybody off safely, especially if you've got people dumping out onto a dark platform.
And let's give a shout out to the New York City transit workers and the MTA in this situation, that they had a plan. They knew what the plan was. It seems it was put into effect, and you heard it from the mayor. Yeah. No reports of any sort of injuries throughout this entire process. So, you know, for a group of workers whose mantra is we keep New York moving, even when New York comes to a halt, they kept people moving safely and effectively to get them out of the subway.
Yeah, another one of our reporters out and about this night, keeping an eye on things, letting us know what's going out. Anthony Johnson, he is on the Upper West Side. Anthony?
I hear a dial tone, so maybe we lost Anthony. Anthony, are you there?
we're going to get him back.
Yeah, Anthony can tell a story, so we're anxious to hear what he has to say on the west side. Live pictures, once again, of a dark portion of New York City, the west side of Manhattan, without power, approaching now 3 hours, and we're hoping to get some more information at a news conference that we've been told is scheduled to happen right around 9:45.
Yeah, this is Newscopter 7 up in the air, you know, an indication of just how dark it was. I think you saw just a few minutes ago along your screen a sort of a thin white line. I think those are cars on streets, but there's not much light anywhere else. And what you do see is more or less probably what we're dealing with here. There are buildings that have some sort of backup generator.
All right.
Anthony Johnson on the phone on the Upper West Side. Anthony, Sandra, and Joe here.
How are you holding up, man?
Hey, we're over here, got over here just after 8 o'clock, and this is a location where they're setting up a command center. We understand at 9:45 they're going to give us an update on the situation, what happened, how long it'll take, if they have any idea how this all began. But I just want to let you know, if we could set the scene of what Manhattan looks like here on the west side. Now, I'm standing in the middle of West End and 64th, all traffic pretty much coming to a standstill out here. As far as the eye can see, emergency response taking place here. A lot of people are standing out here on the streets. We got a chance to talk to a number of them. A couple of them telling us that they did hear an explosion near this location just before the power went out. Several people saying they had to walk downstairs. Remember, this is a cluster of high-rises along West End at this location. So a lot of people were stuck inside of their apartments. Luckily, those people were able to walk downstairs. But, of course, everybody is concerned about the fact that there may be people inside of elevators that they're still working to find out what's taking place. Like you heard from the mayor, this may be a transmission problem, an underground problem. That's pretty much an important way for folks to get their electrical supply through the transmission lines. So this could be a problem that they'll be dealing with for quite a while. We do understand that they probably won't have this rectified within an hour. And, of course, a lot of people out here on the streets, they're asking questions. They want to know when the power is going to come back on. But at this point in time, nobody's saying when. We have a tremendous emergency response out here at this location. We have police officers. I see emergency services officers. Pretty much at this point in time, they're all standing around. But once again, this is the command center. So they will be giving us more information from this location about what's happening. But just standing out on the street here, Sandra and Joe, it's just a tremendous sight to look down the street, both to my left and then to my right, looking up the West End and seeing that the lights are out in all of these buildings. A couple of apartments, you can see they've already started to light a few candles, so you know people are up there. But it's a pretty warm evening out here, so you know folks in those
82 degrees
probably get uncomfortable pretty soon.
Hey, Anthony, I have a quick question for you. You talked about the command center and emergency responders there. Do you see any sort of work going on, like Con Ed crews working in the location where you are?
That, you know what, we do see maybe one Con Ed emergency truck, and I do see an area that has been blocked off, but it's hard to tell. Normally, when we arrive at these situations, you would see Con Ed workers. You might even see firefighters, emergency crews working in a hole in the street. But I'm standing next to a couple of manholes, and I don't see any evidence of the problem right where I am located. But folks in this area did say they heard a rather large boom. One man said it didn't sound like a bomb, but it was a loud boom that would get your attention. And he said it happened right here in this area.
All right. I mean, we do know that the FDNY responded to a transformer fire at that location, 64th and West End Avenue, but also talking to the council speaker earlier, he was saying 49th Street, right?
Yeah, 49th, between 11th and 12th. There was some sort of substation there. And he indicated that his understanding was that the issue might have be coming out of that substation.
But all we've heard is from the mayor
there's a big Con Ed facility just north of here.
Yes.
Probably 2 blocks north of where we are. No indication that had anything to do with it, but we do know that Con Ed location is here. But I still have to emphasize how eerie it is to stand out here, a beautiful night in the city, of course, but to stand out here and everything except for the emergency vehicles and the few cars that are passing through this area, those are the only lights that are really on. Maybe a couple of buildings have emergency generators that are now working, but those are the lights that are on. That's all you see. You can see, even in the dark, you can see the tall buildings. You can see how many floors, 20, 30, 40 floors up, and you don't see a single light from any of those buildings. So it's a pretty eerie sight out here on West End Avenue.
You know, Anthony, we are also looking at a picture from Newscopter 7, and it's eerie as well. I mean, you know, we all are sort of proud, whether we admit it or not, when we see the Manhattan skyline all lit up. You know, it's a beautiful sight, and tonight, of course, a good portion of Manhattan, that west side, it's dark. The only lights you really see are streets on, you know, car lights on the streets, and then the spaces between the streets are dark. It's like a grid, and there's very much a dividing line. I'm looking at it right now. You kind of see where the city's kind of dark and where the city's all lit up. And it certainly sounds like, even from what you're describing there and what you're not seeing in terms of work, is that Con Ed does have its work cut out for it as it tries to figure out where this problem is and get it resolved.
Anthony, we're hoping that the command center quickly becomes the answer center, because here it is, 9:33, and I'm sure you want to start getting ready for that news conference that's going to happen about 9:45. So we'll let you go. Hang in there. You get any new information, you know how to get a hold of us.
Thank you very much, Joe and Sandra.
Thank you, Anthony. We are actually looking at some live pictures from Anthony Johnson's location now. He is on the Upper West Side, 64th Street and West End Avenue, in a little under 15 minutes. Anthony, you're telling us there is going to be a briefing there. We're going to, as Joe pointed out, hopefully get some answers about exactly what's going on and where Con Ed is in terms of getting this resolved.
What you see there, NYPD response, helping to direct traffic. There you can see some large lights that were put up. And West End Avenue there, NYPD, probably helping to direct traffic, or perhaps just to keep people away from that area at 64th and West End. Yeah. And what I did see initially at that shot, the traffic signal there, out as well. Yeah, that's been a big problem all over the city tonight. From just the minute the power went out, traffic lights among the first things to go down. Anthony pointed out people are on the street there in the neighborhood where he is. They want answers as well. Some folks in that area reporting, Anthony said, hearing some sort of a boom. It wasn't particularly loud, but they knew something had happened. So when I'm thinking it's logical that if the command center has been set up, this may indeed be where the issue originated. May not be where you know, it's going to be fixed, but it could be what triggered this outage, at least initially. I want to re-emphasize what the mayor told us a little while ago, that at this point, no evidence of foul play, that this seems to be the root cause, some sort of mechanical problem, but the mayor could get no more specific than that. And we mentioned this earlier, and perhaps you weren't tuned in at the time, so we'll mention it again. It was on this date in 1977 when the blackout hit New York City. Yeah. So here we are on the very same July 13th, years and decades later. I don't know what sort of connection, if any, you can make. Perhaps it's just coincidence. In fact, let's just hope it's just coincidence. And again, that blackout in 1977, much larger than this one. We are dealing with, for New York City, which is a fairly contained outage. Right now, we believe it runs from 72nd Street into the 40s on the south end. And we are told from about 5th Avenue to the Hudson River. Yep. And of course, along here, Columbus Avenue, Broadway, where we are here on the Upper West Side. We've been out here from about 72nd Street. Yeah, and we knew exactly when it happened because our lights went out here in our studios on the west side of Manhattan right at 6:45. You and I quickly, the reporters in us, ventured outside to see if it wasn't just us, and seeing that the street lights were out, that the lights were out across the street at some of the shops, we immediately knew that this was. Well, there you have it. You know, that's some quick thinking. In 1977, and you want to look at the date, that's July 14th, so it was the next day. Power failure that blacks out New York, thousands trapped in the subways, Thankfully, that last line has not materialized, and that's great news.
So far, it's been a pretty calm night here. Emergency crews, FDNY said they've definitely had a spike in calls. A lot of those calls, people trapped in elevators. In some places, people wondering, my lights are out, what's going on? And hopefully by now, they at least have a feel for the fact that we've pinpointed where the outage is. It's contained. It appears to be.
They want me to go back on
what
the
we
air
don't
again?
know yet is when it's going to come to an end,
Hey,
when
Brian,
the power will
back
be
on?
coming back on. That's Anthony Johnson you hear there.
Yep, as he gets ready for that
I'll
news
be right
conference
here. I can
supposed
be
to
right
happen
here.
in just a little while. There he is, Anthony. Good to see Anthony.
Okay.
But again, it's
Never mind.
the longer this goes, the greater the concern for the elderly, the seniors.
You got stay with me.
All right, Anthony, I see him. We'll stay with Anthony.
Can
Anthony,
you hear us?
can you hear us? We can see a picture of you. It's Joe and
I can
Sandra.
hear you guys. We're just right here on the street like we talked about. This is what it looks like right now at 64th and West End. I just want you to see all the emergency response taking place here at this location. We've had numbers of firefighters and police officers that have been responding out here to the scene. We've seen a lot of people out here gathered on the street. Once again, this is going to be where the command center is, actually right down the street from where we are standing. But if we could just take a look, if we don't mind just tilting up, because you're kind of looking into the dark, but believe it or not, folks, in the sky, those are buildings. They are dark buildings.
Yeah.
No electricity, no power. You can see how tall some of these buildings may be. And if you look way up, you might be able to see some candles in the windows of some of these buildings. So you know folks are way at the top of these buildings waiting for their power to go on. Now, at this point in time, we've only heard that this appears to be a transmission problem. As we had told you guys earlier, folks out in this location had told us that they did hear a boom sound, and then people saw lights flicker, and then finally the lights went out. Now, you did ask a little bit earlier, do we see Con Ed crews here? We might see a couple of people from Con Ed. They're not actually working in the street, but let me just show you something, because basically we can go across the street. I see that manhole or that area over there. It's blocked off, but it's no way to tell if that's even the problem area. But let's take a look down West End, because as you look down West End, this just shows you the magnitude of the outage that's here tonight. You can see as far as the eye can see, and where you see a building that is lit up, that's probably south of 42nd Street, but all the way down, you can see that all of the street lights are out. The only lights you could see are the car lights, those coming, the brake lights of all those going. Now, we do anticipate in just a few minutes from now, they're going to give us an update from this location at 9:45. Hopefully, we'll be able to give folks more information on what caused the outage, maybe some idea how long this is going to take. But I can tell you, once again, there is a huge emergency response at this location. A lot of people are out here on the street. So many of these people talked about coming downstairs, getting out of their apartments, walking down the stairs. And as you folks mentioned, people are concerned about the possibility of people being stuck in their homes on a relatively warm night. Hopefully they'll be able to open the windows and get some air, because obviously this looks like it's going to be a while before Con Ed is able to go ahead and fix this problem here this evening. But police forces continue to gather at this location. Once again, we're hoping to get an update in a few minutes, get some answers to what caused this power outage. Once again, it came down around 7 o'clock. No sign of any work taking place at this location. We do know that there's a huge substation not far from where we are standing. We don't know if that's where that popping sound that people said they heard actually came from, but we do know that everybody has been gathered here, and we'll hopefully get an update in just a few minutes about what caused this and how much longer and what people should expect all along the west side of Manhattan. Some people already talking about packing up, leaving the area, and going to other locations of the city. I mean, it's quite a scene out here. It's kind of eerie. You talk about 42 years ago tonight, 1977, believe it or not, Joe and Sandra.
Yeah.
I was living over in Jersey. I remember that really, really well, and all that happened in the aftermath of that. People out here on the street, they're very calm, they're very relaxed, but you know, at some point in time, they will get antsy as they can get concerned about being inconvenienced on a night like tonight. And of course, they want to know how long they're going to be without power. Right now, a lot of people are just standing around. They're just waiting and hoping to get word very, very soon about what's taking place out here.
All right, Anthony, hopefully 9:45 is what we're hearing in just a few minutes. We will get answers to some of those questions, and we will definitely get back to you.
And Anthony, you might want to ask about this because we've just gotten some new information. I'm sure you've got many questions, but we understand that Jennifer Lopez's concert scheduled for tonight at Madison Square Garden is at least on hold at the moment as Madison Square Garden is evacuated. In fact, we can show you what happened when the power went out at MSG.
Wow. The power went out.
There you have it. That's just on a loop there of somebody inside ready for the J-Lo concert at MSG, and the power went out. And you know what I find interesting, Sandra? Madison Square Garden's at 33rd, 34th Street.
Exactly.
We've received indication all night that the south end of this power outage was at 42nd Street.
Yeah.
So for some reason or another, if the power is out at MSG at Madison Square Garden, the world's greatest arena, that opens up a whole new set of questions.
Yeah, this is a live look at MSG right now. You can see right there to the left of your screen, emergency vehicles appear to be there at the scene. As we said, people are being evacuated from that show. This concert, just one of the casualties of this night. Many Broadway theaters, black as well. They had to be evacuated. Movie theaters across the west side of Manhattan also evacuated on this Saturday night. Many businesses, restaurants, folks can't serve, they can't see, you can't cook. In many places you don't have electricity. I guess if you're cooking with gas, maybe, but not having lights is a big issue. Probably not having refrigeration. So many of those businesses are closed as well.
Yeah, entertainment taking a big hit tonight. Broadway, movie theaters, and now this concert at Madison Square Garden. Jennifer Lopez ready to entertain what were thousands of people there, I'm sure, for what would have been a very special night for them. And now suddenly, because of a power outage at MSG, they are on the street as well. Yeah,
the good news in all of this is you saw that headline a few minutes ago from 42 years ago? That's what Anthony
1977.
said.
Yeah, I was here as well.
So far tonight, we've got no reports of injuries. We do know that some folks have been trapped in elevators. The FDNY has been busy tonight answering that calls. We also know at least 2 subway trains were trapped underground. According to Mayor de Blasio, those trains did have air conditioning. Emergency responders were on the way to those trains to help get those passengers off safely. So far, it's been a headache.
Yeah.
It's been a pain as Con Ed tries to determine what caused this and get it fixed. But we don't have reports at this point in time of people being injured.
Hopefully we're going to get some answers soon. Anthony Johnson is at 64th and West End, where a news conference is about to get underway. He was having an enjoyable Saturday night. Thanks for coming in, Anthony, to help us tell the story of what's going on. Go ahead. Take it away, my friend.
Hey, so we're out here. There's a lot of people standing around out here. This is out in front of 101 West End. This is where the command center is located. You live just a couple of blocks away. Tell us what happened when the power went out.
Well, I actually came in from Long Island around 8 o'clock, and as I was going up 57th Street, all the traffic lights were out. Everybody was out on the street already, and I knew something was up. So when I came here, I found out that it was a power out. I'm just a block away from here, but we have no power either.
What floor do you live on?
I live on the 9th floor.
Any concerns about any residents that may live in the building that weren't able to get out this evening?
Not that I know of. The concierge was downstairs. He didn't seem to be concerned about any of that. There were a few people downstairs. So I think everyone is pretty safe.
That's the good news right there.
That's the good news there.
And we just want to show, if we can, look at all the people that are kind of out here on the sidewalk. Everybody's brought their cute little dog. Yours is just adorable.
Thank you.
But everybody walked out here. They've been standing out here on the street as we've been talking about. So many of these folks. Maybe we could just walk over to some of these folks. Thank you very much, ma'am. Hey, you guys live in the area, in the neighborhood. Could I just ask you what happened? Did you hear anything? Did you see anything when this all started?
No, we were just watching TV, and then everything went out at the same time. I live close to Lincoln Center, and they had a performance, so all the amplified music stopped. And that's when I went to the window and saw that the lights were out as far up Amsterdam as I could see. So.
Right. And have they said anything to you about how much longer this is going to last? What are you going to do through the evening?
No, I'm trying to stop one of these Con Ed guys walking around in the blue hats. That's who you need to talk to.
Right, yeah. They're going to have an update in just a few minutes. But once again, you can see all of these folks. Thank you very much, sir. Good luck to you tonight. You guys are, of course, out here. Enjoy yourself. But you can see all of these folks are out here just kind of waiting to get some information. Like I said, this is going to be where the command center is going to be located. This is where they've set it up. This is where they're going to have a news conference shortly. But you can see all these folks. A lot of them, of course, are reaching out on social media to let friends and family and others know what is taking place here. But this seems to be the center of activity. But just look at all the people just kind of gathered at this location. Many of them have been here since about 7 o'clock. Sir, do you live in the neighborhood, or did you hear it?
I live on 57th.
We're Channel 7 Eyewitness News. Just tell us what happened when it went out. Did you notice anything?
No, I'm on 57th. The power just went out. I really didn't notice anything. We walked outside the building. Everybody was walking outside looking to see what's going on. There was no information. I just walked over here. I actually used to live in this building. I don't know exactly what everybody's doing here, but...
The command center is located here.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Right. So we don't know specifically why they could pick this location, but we do understand they're going to give us information from this location here. And what do you do the rest of the night as you're waiting to find out?
Well, hopefully the room is still nice and cool so that when I go back, I could go back to sleep. My wife's waiting for me over there. I told her I'm just going to check this out. Hopefully we'll get power soon, but it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, it might be a long night. We'll have to wait and see. Thank you very much. Good luck to you. So as you can see, everywhere you look, there are folks out here that are doing the same thing, coming down to check to find out specifically what is going on, trying to get some answers to this power outage out here on the west side. As you see, police officers walking, but they're just about everywhere out here, making sure everybody's safe and secure, but everybody very orderly out here tonight as they wait to find out what caused the power outage. And like the last gentleman said, they just want to find out how long it's going to take before they're able to get their power back. But you know what? Looking at the situation right now, Joe and Sandra, it looks like it's going to be a long evening for a lot of people.
She's inside. I got to go inside.
TV, and now she knows that he's okay.
Anthony, we are going to take a pause from you for a second, let you get set for this news conference. Don't go anywhere because we may be right back to you. Two things. First, we want to tell you, we've just gotten word that Mayor de Blasio is heading back to New York from Iowa.
Yep, he was on the presidential campaign trail, and we chatted with him earlier, and at the time, he said he was going to wait till he got more information before making his decision. Apparently, he got some more information.
Yeah, enough to make him reconsider that decision to stay there in Iowa. The second thing is Naveen Dhaliwal. She's live at Columbus Circle right now. Naveen, you've been out there all night talking to people, and they've got the same questions, I guess, those folks that Anthony was talking to have.
Absolutely, they do. They want to know when is the power going to be back on. But there's another question they have here, especially the subway riders who need to get home or get to where they're going, is which trains can they go on and which subway stops are actually functioning, as well as which buses are functioning. We've been watching this one of the busiest subway stops right here on the Upper West Side. New York's finest, and trying to calm some of the people here who have that question. This subway stop has been closed down since about 7 o'clock, since this all started. The trains, when we were talking to the subway riders, they tell us that the train just stopped working. There were air conditioning in the train. That's a good thing, especially on a summer July night here in New York City. But for the most part, they said it was orderly. Some train cars, individuals told us that there was panic because people didn't know when they were going to get off the trains. When you look around Columbus Circle right now, apart from Columbus Circle down south, the lights are on. But if you look toward the right, I'm just going to have Brett Cohen just pan over to the right. You can see these buildings have no lights. They're dark. It's kind of very, very eerie when you look up Broadway from this part. So that is what we are looking here. Traffic has been a mess because remember, it's not just foot traffic, it's road traffic, as well as the emergency crews who've been going back and forth trying to watch out for the foot traffic because there are no lights. It's difficult to see people on the roadways, but so far haven't seen anyone get injured here. Now, I did want to just introduce to you Annette and her daughter. Annette actually is, where do you live, Annette?
In the Bronx.
In the Bronx. And you had mentioned that you walked all the way from 34th Street.
Yes, 34th Street, and then I stopped 42nd Street, still closed. I walked up a little more. Now this is head down. I'm trying to find a train, bus, or something to get home.
Okay, and what was that walk like?
Horrible. It's dark. My daughter's scared. We don't know thousands of people who are, we don't know when the light is going to come back on or whatever. We still walking right now. It's been like 2 hours already. Like my daughter got to keep stopping, drinking water. I don't even know what's going on or whatever. This is ridiculous.
You doing okay, kiddo? Yeah? How was the walk in the dark?
Scared.
It was scary, right? But Mom's with you.
Yeah.
Mom's with you a lot. All right. Thank you so much, Annette. Get home safe.
Okay.
All right. I'm sure the police officers right here are helping you out with that. Thank you so much for talking to us again. That is what we're hearing, is the frustration of how people are going to get home. And we're going to bring you more on that coming up at 11 o'clock. Back to you.
All right, Naveen, thank you very much. Hopefully we'll get some of those questions answered, especially in regards to the trains and the buses that are running.
Speaking perhaps of getting some answers to some questions, we want to welcome Governor Andrew Cuomo on the phone with us. Joe and Sandra. Governor, can you hear us?
Hello, Joe. Hello, Sandra.
How are you holding up? What have you heard? Can you give us some new information as to perhaps what caused this, and more importantly, when the lights might come back on?
Yeah, good questions. We have an emergency team that is embedded with Con Ed, our emergency management power personnel, who are very good. They go all around the world helping other countries. The best we can determine from Con Ed, there was a substation fire explosion. And that substation going out then triggered 4 additional substations to lose power and malfunction. That then affects an area roughly 42nd to 58th, but that changes, give or take, Broadway to the Hudson River. It's a great personal inconvenience, obviously, and it's a great personal, great inconvenience to businesses and shows, etc. It's also a public safety issue.
Sure.
You have no traffic lights. You have no train service. Luckily, they believe that everyone has been taken off the trains, and the trains are in the stations and are not operating, so no one is stuck in a train. We haven't heard any reports of anyone stuck in an electric device, an elevator or something like that they would need immediate assistance. Con Ed has not yet come up with a full assessment of the damage, has not yet come up with a full timetable. It keeps changing, frankly, Joe.
Okay.
First it was supposed to be a couple of hours, and now it's longer. I'm sending a couple of hundred state police to the city immediately to help with traffic control. I also called up the National Guard, who can help with traffic control situations like that, because I'm not sure, frankly, and I'm not going to rely on Con Ed's estimate. They told me earlier it would be 1 or 2 hours, and now it's several hours. So I just want to make sure that we are prepared for this. Once we get past the emergency and we handle this situation and we get the power on, then I want to know what the heck happened with Con Ed, because this is not the first time we've had a substation issue. We have substation issues. Substations go out, substations fires. I've been through this too many times. The system was supposed to be designed that if there was a substation failure, there was a breaker between that substation and the next substation, so it didn't surge and knock out other substations. This is exactly what we demanded they design for, because substations do have issues. It's not all that unusual. They can malfunction, they can break, they can have a fire. It's the sequential surge problem that creates this large a blackout area. And in a city like New York, it's a public safety issue. And we can't have it. We just can't have it.
Governor, you sound a little frustrated, and certainly we can understand that. And I'm guessing that your concern is like the concern of so many, that the longer this goes, the greater that public safety concern will be, particularly for the elderly, for seniors, for those who rely on health care and have medical needs as well. If I know Governor Cuomo the way I do, after having chatted with you on many occasions, a moving target for a timetable is not something that you're going to live with. Have you gotten anything more concrete that would suggest when the lights are going to come on?
No, I have people literally at the table with them now. I have state personnel going to examine the substation, the first substation, to find out what happened, and then to also they're simultaneously looking at the other substations. Mm-hmm. I am frustrated, Joe, because this shouldn't happen.
Yep.
You know, I have been through all sorts of emergencies, and things happen that you couldn't anticipate. We've been here before. I've seen this movie. We've all seen this movie. And, we pay Con Ed. They don't do us a favor. They are a utility, and people pay good money, and they expect to have a system that contemplates, anticipates, and prevents foreseeable occurrences.
Mm-hmm. Redundancies.
And a substation malfunction, which then generates a surge, which is a higher level of power than the system can handle. That happens. And then you design the system with breakers so the breaker trips rather than damaging the other substation. But the first order of business, and I will go through this with Con Ed. You do know me, Joe, and don't worry about that.
You're going to give him a piece of your mind.
Oh, yeah. But the first order of business is tonight and the public safety issue. It is traffic lights and inconvenience in homes and senior citizen residents. New Yorkers have been very well behaved during this situation. But if it goes on for a prolonged period of time, alarms are not functioning, police are dispatched to other areas, so the situation can deteriorate. And let me just leave it at that.
When do you think we might see some of these state police in place here to help with the traffic situation? And you mentioned even National Guards.
They are en route now, Sandra. They are on site. We have about 100 who will be on site forthwith. The National Guard are called up. We have some in reserve, but many National Guard people, they're just home, so we call them up, but they're in the metropolitan area, and we can get them on several hours' notice. I'm still trying to gauge from Con Ed, are we talking 2 hours, 4 hours, or 8 hours? And I'm not going to give you an estimate because I don't feel that I have been given a credible estimate because it's changed several times already. So in a situation like this, the old adage is right. You prepare for the worst and you hope for the best. So we're going to call up the personnel in case we need them. We have personnel with Con Ed. I have my top power team going to be with Con Ed. If they don't give me an answer quickly, I'm going to go to Con Ed headquarters. So as soon as we have an estimate on the damage to the substations and how long it will take to repair those substations or bypass the substations, you can rewire around a substation. But it's a significant area. It is a significant area, and when you're talking about 40,000 locations, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people.
Sure, those are customers, right.
Right. So that's everything we know now. I have people on site, and as I said, if I don't get a firm answer forthwith, I'll go speak with Mr. Con Ed myself.
Governor, before we let you go, you gave sort of the footprint of what is this outage. Right before we talked to you, we got information that authorities at Madison Square Garden are evacuating the people there who gathered for tonight's Jennifer Lopez. Thank you. Get that right, Joe. J-Lo's concert tonight at the Garden, which would indicate to us, you know, that's below 42nd Street, and that raises a whole new set of questions.
Yeah, well, that's my information also. That's why, if you notice, you have to listen carefully, Joe, because I'm a Queens boy, and we're very precise. I said 42nd to 58th.
Yes.
Plus or minus.
We're with you. We're with you.
Okay.
Yeah. The Con Ed said 42nd to 58, but the state police had informed me that there are areas outside of that, those boundaries, that also have no power.
Yeah.
And Madison Square Garden is an example of that. And by the way, in your defense, Joe, Jennifer Lawrence is great too.
She is.
It was just.
But she's not from the Bronx.
But she's not. Yeah, she's not. She's not from the Bronx, and she can't sing and dance the way Jennifer Lopez does. But that's another story for another time.
But she's good. She's good.
She's good.
Don't
Yes,
take
she's
away
good.
anything from Jennifer Lawrence.
Yes.
All right, Governor Andrew Cuomo, thank you so much for talking with us. As soon as you hear more, you call us
Keep
and
us
you
posted.
fill us in.
You know how to get a hold of us.
Will do. Thank you.
Thanks, Governor. Governor Cuomo there enlightening us, and he had some new information there. Besides the fact that he is sending New York State Police as well as the National Guard to help out with the traffic situation in the city. You heard him say public safety is the big concern at the moment. Economic impact and those other things will follow, but him walking through the substation with the fire and the explosion, which triggered 4 other substations to lose power.
Yeah, that is the most exact information we've gotten all night about exactly how this transpired, and perhaps why we have also gotten accounts of varying locations.
Yes, for sure.
That kind of makes more sense now.
But you also, he frankly admitted he's frustrated in terms of why this happened and what were redundancies that what he thought and knows are built into the system to prevent such a situation from happening.
Yeah. Now, about 15 minutes ago, we were expecting to get a briefing on some of this information from first responders and other officials. I'm assuming Con Ed was also supposed to be at that briefing. Is Anthony Johnson? He's been on the West Side all evening. We're being told that they are actually setting up for that briefing on the West Side now. And so I'm assuming what we are going to hear is some of the information that the governor just highlighted for us in terms of what may have triggered this problem. And I think we're all keeping our fingers crossed that we may.
Something tells me they're updating the governor right now.
Get some additional information in terms of when they think they might be able to get this fixed.
We'll quickly run down the top to bottom here before we get to the news conference. 6:45 is when this blackout started, affecting more than 43,000 customers. But again,
that means probably hundreds of thousands of people in Manhattan, most of them on the West Side, from approximately 71st Street on the Upper West Side, extending, we know, into the 40s, but perhaps, as the governor pointed out, some other pockets beyond that, because Madison Square Garden is one of those locations outside of those parameters that is having to be evacuated because of losing power tonight.
And that's north to south, from east to west. It's 5th Avenue all the way to the Hudson River. So again, that is a pretty significant swath of Manhattan, and you can see it here. These are live pictures from Newscopter 7, high above a scene that you don't often see, is a dark section of Manhattan.
Yeah, many of the lights on the West Side tonight are lights from automobiles or perhaps some buildings like our ABC headquarters that do have emergency generators, so they've got a little bit of power.
Yeah, but hospitals do as well. Some of those other big operations certainly have auxiliary power, but we're thinking tonight, the longer this goes, of senior citizens, those with health needs or medical concerns as well, making sure that they are taken care of. And I forget who it was that pointed it out. I think it was Councilman Speaker Corey Johnson. If you've got a friend or a pal or a relative or a loved one that could perhaps use a visit at this hour or a well check, this would be a great time to sort of reach out to them to make sure that they are A-OK.
And we have to point out the subways are greatly affected by this power outage. In fact, some of the trains not running. We do know that there are a couple of trains, especially the number 2 train that is running along the west side. But you're talking about New York City, one train line is not going to get all those people where they need to go. You heard Naveen Dhaliwal talking to a mother at Columbus Circle who was frustrated. She and her daughter had walked from the 30s to Columbus. They were trying to figure out what train, what bus can we get on. I think she's trying to get back to the Bronx. I think that's a question a lot of people are asking tonight. We talked to one young lady who was on a train that had to be evacuated over at 57th Street. She lives in Queens. She was able to get on a bus, get back to Queens. But those are some of the other questions that are going to have to be answered. We're hoping to have some additional answers for you as the evening goes on.
A rough night for so many people who wanted a night of entertainment, whether it was the J-Lo concert at Madison Square Garden, whether it was movie theaters on the Upper West Side, or perhaps it was theater goers in Midtown. And with that, we're going to send it back to Sandy Kenyon, who is not far from the scene there. Can you walk us through an update, if you would, Sandy? Take it away.
I'd be happy to, Joe, and hello, Sandra. What you're seeing is really an amazement if you've been here, as we have, for a couple of hours. And Mike, I can go the other way, and you'll see these lights are on. Now, this is on the west side. Let me tell you the story of Times Square. It was really 2 Times Squares. One looked like a regular Saturday evening, and the other looked dark. Totally, completely dark. Now, these lights came on, I would say about 10 minutes ago. There was a cheer from the crowd. I looked up, and this is exactly as it looks on a typical Saturday night. Now, I'm going to step down here and see these crowds here have been waiting for this. They have been waiting for these lights to come on. Now, Mike, if you could pan right. So, for most of this evening, over on the east side, where those people are, the lights looked like another Saturday night. Now, when you go left, Mike, that was the part in our previous live shot that was dark. So, behind my shoulder right here, this was the part that was dark. And now the lights have come on, and the mood has turned very, very festive. People were using words like chaos, bizarre, surreal. And they were using all of those phrases to describe Times Square, half lit, half dark. Now it looks like another Saturday night with the mood to match. Sandra, Joe?
All right, Sandy, thank you so much for that update. And that's a good update because it would indicate that Con Ed is making some progress in restoring power. We saw that as Sandy so adequately pointed out, it was half dark and half lit, and now it seems the lights are back on in Times Square, and the hope is it'll work its way north.
Exactly. You take a look at this picture. Actually, it illustrates what Sandy was telling us. Part of Manhattan is all lit up, and that little section there you see from Newscopter 7 is still very much dark as the utility tries to figure out the source of this problem and get it fixed.
The lights, according to Sandy, came back in Times Square right around 10 o'clock. The power went out at 6:45. You can do the math. Well, a long time for the power to be out. And again, the hope and prayer is that the electricity will come back, moving north and come back quickly. We were waiting for an update that was supposed to happen, or told was going to happen, at about 9:45 at what seems to be the source of what triggered this outage at 64th Street in the West End, where the FDNY initially reported to a transformer fire. And then after talking to Governor Cuomo, he enlightened us further.
Yeah, he really did. It appears one substation blew out. I may not be saying that correctly. That triggered blowouts at least 4 other substations. The governor, very, very frustrated. He indicated that in past conversations with the utility, Con Ed, there had been discussion about making sure if you had a blowout at one substation, there was a breaker, as he described it, something to make sure that wasn't able to skip to the other substations, I guess, on that line. And again, I am ignorant of this.
I think people understand.
Specifically, but I think you know what I'm saying.
You know, utility verbiage we don't often use. So,
but his frustration was that did not appear to be in place tonight, and that is why this situation has spun out of control and has extended much farther than he believes it should have.
I do have an update, Sandra, from someone we talked to earlier, City Council Speaker Corey Johnson, just letting us know here to the newsroom that the outage affected what are 6 sections, if you will, of power that were initially knocked out, and he's telling us 2 of those sections have now been restored. Okay. So I'm guessing what Sandy is seeing confirms the fact that 2 of 6 sections that were knocked out, and again, I don't know how big or how widespread one section is, but a third of the way there in terms of restoring the power. So that's good news.
Yeah, we are, in fact, as Joe pointed out, waiting for an update. We had expected it to start at about 9:45. We're almost half an hour beyond that. We are told that they are right now preparing for that update. This is live. These are live pictures.
Live pictures from
the west side, 64th West End Avenue. Our Anthony Johnson has been there this evening, is there now, waiting for this news conference to begin. We are expecting to hear from the parties involved in this situation. That would include, I'm sure, emergency, Con Ed for sure, emergency management officials, someone from the FDNY, from the NYPD, any of the stakeholders here in the city tonight. The mayor,
Yep, Mayor de Blasio is right now campaigning in Iowa, but he updated to say that he's going to put a halt to that, and Mayor de Blasio is on his way back to New York City at this hour. What else can we tell you? The news conference, again, is scheduled to get underway. We're hoping to get some more answers there.
Yeah, and obviously the good news tonight is it is just terribly inconvenient, especially if you're someone that's gotten trapped in an elevator. You can't get home tonight because you're trying to find a bus and a train. But we are happy to report, at least at this hour, we have not heard reports of any injuries. No serious problems at this point, except for people really being inconvenienced.
But you heard the mayor say it, the governor say it, the council speaker. Public safety is the big concern right now, and the longer this goes, the greater that public safety concern. The economic impact, I think the damage has been done. We'll be talking about that tomorrow, but you mentioned it, so many restaurants, so many businesses and theaters that rely on a busy Saturday night in July had all of that business in one fell swoop just sort of knocked out. And what sort of recovery it'll be to get that back, I guess we'll find out as the day progresses.
Yeah, and the governor, anticipating any possible public safety issues, he is sending, and he says they're on the way, some of them here, at least 100 state police to come in and help with, there's no traffic lights anywhere tonight. That's a big issue. As well as some members of the National Guard are being notified, and they may indeed be on duty in the city. That could become increasingly important if this power outage extends for much beyond tonight.
Con Ed, Sandra just put out a statement, or at least made us aware of it here in the newsroom, and this is the latest. Power is being restored, and here's your first estimate. Most customers will have power by midnight tonight. Con Ed saying the power will be restored for most customers by midnight tonight, so that's another hour and 46 minutes away. Most customers, again, that's up for debate, but we'll find out hopefully in a little while more specifically what they mean by most of the 43,000 customers that currently don't have power.
And to that end, we just had Sandy on a short time ago.
Yeah.
And as he pointed out, a portion of Times Square had been dark during the course of the evening. Those lights are now back on there. So perhaps, as you said, this is some indication of that work Con Ed is currently doing being successful.
And it corroborates a little bit of what the council speaker told us just a few minutes ago, that initially the power knocked out 6 sections. 2 of those sections are now back up and running, and power, as Con Ed said, is in the process of being restored to what would be those remaining 4 sections throughout the city.
And ironically, I think we showed you this earlier this evening. I'm not sure if we still have that graphic with the New York Times headline from 42 years ago. talking about that much larger power outage that gripped the city. There were all kind of problems. Power failure, blacks out New York, thousands trapped in the subways, looters and vandals hit some areas. None of that is happening tonight, except for the power failure. And it's not the city. It is the west side of Manhattan, a fairly contained section of the west side of Manhattan. 72nd Street is the northern border. 40th, maybe 34th Street is the southern border, and then from 5th Avenue over to the Hudson River.
But the strange fact, July 13th, 1977, so the very same day, 42 years ago, and thankfully it wasn't as widespread. At the same time, even though it's only a small section of Manhattan, there are a fair number of people in that section, a number of people that far exceeds the size of many cities across the United States.
Yeah, Con Ed tonight, obviously not just working to repair this problem, get the lights back on, but also I think they're going to have some questions to answer, at least to the governor, in terms of how this occurred and why the initial problem, why it didn't end there and how it was able to cascade to other stations. I think those are some of the questions that the company is going to have to answer. And look, none of us know what caused this, what it was exactly. But I think there's going to be, for the next few days, a lot of
questions and a lot of answers. Live pictures from Newscopter 7 that sort of paint the picture much better than we can tell it. A dark portion of New York City, Manhattan's west side, and portions of Midtown, dark tonight. The power in the process of being restored. We'd love to see what sort of pictures, what sort of video you've recorded as we've experienced this sort of blackout. You can send it to us with the hashtag ABC7NY. You can share with us your stories. We've heard from some of you on the phone. We've talked to some of you out on the street, and there's a fair number of you also communicating to us on social media.
All right, we've been talking about this update. New York City Council Speaker Corey Johnson is on the phone now, and the news Speaker Johnson seems to be a little bit better.
Yes, that's right. There was a sector, just how Con Ed categorizes the grid of an area that gets knocked out for sections that were knocked out. Those have come back on, and that is covering the West 40s and the West 50s and Hell's Kitchen. The other four sectors should be back on in the next 2 hours. So that is good news. Things are coming back online in an orderly manner, and hopefully by midnight we'll have all of the power back on for the areas that were affected during this incident tonight.
Speaker Johnson, do you have any of the same concerns as the governor that what's being described so far as a situation Governor Cuomo seems to indicate that had been discussed and he assumed wouldn't occur again?
Was preventable.
Procedures would be in place so that one station blowing out didn't blow out, or sector blowing out didn't blow out other sectors.
Yeah, I don't want to pretend to be an expert on this. You know, the governor, of course, likely has a lot more information than I do, given his position. But, you know, hopefully we can ensure this doesn't happen again, because it's scary for New Yorkers. It affects the local economy. It puts people at risk who have health conditions. It traps people in elevators. It knocks out the subway system. So there's a myriad of reasons why we can't allow this to happen again. And if the governor's saying that's the case, then that's good news.
I'm guessing it was the head of Con Ed who you called and got this latest information from, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, I spoke to the CEO of Con Edison about 5 minutes ago, and he gave me this update that the 2 sectors have come back online and the additional 4 should be up within the next 2 hours.
Did he provide you any indication as to more specifically what it was that triggered the outage?
No, he said that there wasn't serious damage to any of the equipment that they were looking at, but there was not an exact reason of why this happened tonight, and I'm sure sort of a forensic examination will take place to see exactly what happened and to hopefully prevent it from happening again in the future.
And we've been happy to report all evening here, Speaker, that there haven't been any reports of serious injuries, that there were people that were trapped in elevators. The FDNY was getting to them. Also, there had been word of some trains trapped in tunnels. Just, do you have any information in terms of updating us on that?
I haven't been told of any injuries, thank God.
Good news.
But one of the things that I've been seeing on social media, which I think is really moving in a time of confusion and scare and fear for the city, is you've seen New Yorkers out there when traffic lights are down helping move traffic along. You've seen people who came out of Broadway shows, the cast, singing to people on the street. You've seen people stepping up and helping. We are the greatest city in the world, New York City. And in moments like this, when New Yorkers step up to help each other in a moment of crisis, we saw it after 9/11. We saw it in the Blackout in 2003. We're seeing it tonight. It shows the best of our city in a time when the city needs help from everyone, from our first responders and law enforcement, all the way down to ordinary citizens who are doing their best to help out in these difficult moments. And that really is heartening, and it's really moving to see that happening.
Council Speaker Corey Johnson, thanks so much for the update and for reaching out to the head of the CEO there of Con Ed for some quick answers.
Thank you very much.
All righty. He said he'd get back to us, and he did.
Yep.
That's great news there. Encouraging to hear that, from what he was told, no serious damage to equipment. Because the thinking might be, if the damage was super serious, then it's going to take a long time to replace it, and an even longer time perhaps to even get the power back up.
Yeah, there's going to be some post-mortem.
Oh, for sure.
On this, for sure, with people trying to get to the bottom of this, trying to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Live pictures from Newscopter 7. And is that the West Side Highway, or is that Fifth Avenue? Or it can't be Fifth Avenue. Yeah, it's the West Side Highway. So the west side of Manhattan, Upper West Side of Manhattan there.
Yeah,
in the
you
dark.
see the west side up there in the left-hand corner. It's just,
Got it.
There's just like the dividing line. There's light on one side, and the other side. Any other time I'd say, oh, that must be Central Park. But no, that's not Central Park, the black hole.
Exactly.
That is the west side of Manhattan.
Again, look in on your neighbor if he or she needs some assistance, if they're a senior, if they have some medical needs. Make sure that they are A-OK. Be a great time to reach out to them, because when a power goes out, that means the air conditioning goes out. It means the elevators stop running. It means the escalators are no longer going up and down. It really can make life a little bit more difficult for those who need and want life to be easy.
Yeah, this has certainly been no normal Saturday night here in New York City. A lot of New Yorkers not expecting to have to walk. We've been getting word from some folks who would have just jumped in an Uber or Lyft or Veer or whatever, that there's been some surge pricing. So people who thought that, oh, I can't get on a train, I'm going to get in another car. Right. That was something they didn't want to pay for tonight. So a lot of people are walking. And go ahead.
While others took the subway, the few that are running, and you saw how crowded they were, even though the advisory was from the MTA and from the New York City Transit Authority to stay out of the underground subway system because of the danger. The platforms are dark. It's hard to see. So nonetheless, if you were going to call an Uber and the price is not what you were ready to pay, the subway becomes your only option.
Yeah, and you know, as we've said, this is the west side, this outage. So on the east side,
the 4, 5, 6,
there may be a better opportunity. Sure. But of course, look, we're waiting to try to break that down. And I guess we'll have a better feel for it once we, I guess around maybe 11 o'clock we go on, we'll have a better feel for what trains are still running and what
is that our camera from Brooklyn on the left-hand side? Brian, our wonderful producer who's helping us out here.
Yes, it is.
So you're looking across the Brooklyn Bridge, and that's Empire. So the lights are on, right, at Empire?
Is that Empire?
Or is that One World Trade? But either way,
that's Empire.
That is Empire. Yes. It is One World Trade, okay. Because we were wondering whether the lights were on at Empire, Madison Square Garden right next to it, people being evacuated for the Jennifer Lopez concert tonight. So we know that the power, was out as far south as 33rd Street there on the west side.
And it's funny, looking at that picture, you would have no indication that we are having power issues.
Yes.
The picture that was up in the
From
left
Brooklyn,
there.
right, looking at lower Manhattan. And there you see just headlights and brake lights. the only stream of lights that are easily visible in a city of lights. The Manhattan skyline is, we're proud of it. We love it. But tonight, at least on the west side of Manhattan, it is dark. There's Empire.
Yeah, so. and it is lit up.
Okay.
Again, that as the governor mentioned, those parameters, and he's funny.
Yeah,
he's very funny.
Yeah, he's good on his feet, the governor. Yes, you know, he threw out a footprint and then altered it to make sure that it included Madison Square Garden, which is of course
he said the
33rd and
parameters
34th.
were not exactly as advertised. Specifically, they weren't concrete. And as we learned, that concert at Madison Square Garden was evacuated.
But at the same time, the governor, when it's time to be serious, and this is one of those times, he's very serious, and he wants answers, and he wants them yesterday for a system that he thought was designed to prevent such rolling knockouts, if you will, of substations. And the way the governor put it, there was a transformer fire, perhaps an explosion that followed, that led to one substation and being knocked out, and that rippled into 4 other substations knocking out. And there you have suddenly the west side and Midtown without power.
And the news, as we've said, getting better. According to Speaker Johnson, Con Ed says 2 sectors are now back up, which was essentially confirmed by Sandy Kenyon, who'd seen some lights come back on in Times Square. Another 4 sectors to go. Con Ed saying it hopes to have all of the power, most of it restored, by midnight. So we're about an hour and 30 minutes away, 90 minutes away from, and hopefully they can stick to that timeline.
Mayor de Blasio, we talked to him earlier tonight. In fact, he sent a video from his presidential stop in Iowa, and then he chatted with us on the phone. And at the time, what was this, roughly 2 hours ago, he told us that the indication was things are not at the point where he needed to return. He waited for more information. It seems he got more information because Mayor de Blasio is now on his way back to New York City.
And I suspect that additional information may have been that it was going to take a much longer than the initial time frame given to get the power back on.
All right, I think we're going to go back to, if not Anthony Johnson, at least to his camera there on 64th and the West End Avenue, where the command center has been set up and the news conference is about to get underway.
Chris Well with New York City Emergency Management. I'd like to introduce with me here today as well Public Advocate Jumani Williams, Comptroller Scott Stringer, Borough President Gail Brewer, as well as Assembly Member Linda Rosenthal. A quick update, at 6:47 p.m. there was an electrical disturbance in the system affecting approximately 62,000 customers in the Manhattan area. This was caused by a power outage on the west side of Manhattan. The fire department, police department, and emergency management responded quickly to the scene, and we are working closely with Con Ed to restore power as quickly as possible. We have no reports of injuries or fatalities at this time. We also have a list of those individuals that are on life-saving equipment, and we are working with them to make sure they have what they need. And we have put together a joint task force with PD and the fire department to make sure that nobody is stuck in an elevator still. Right now, I'd like to turn it over to the CEO of Con Ed, John McAvoy, to give an update from Con Ed.
Hi, good evening. Thank you very much. My name is John McAvoy. I'm here to represent Con Edison. We experienced a significant disturbance on the west side of Manhattan at one of our electric transmission stations at roughly 6:47 p.m. that eventually interrupted power to approximately 73,000 customers. We divide the electric system into what we call networks. It's roughly equivalent to neighborhoods. It interrupted power to 6 networks. We expedited the recovery, performed an initial assessment of what was the most likely cause, isolated that equipment, inspected the other equipment to identify any obvious abnormalities, and now we have started the restoration process. Of the 6 networks that we lost, we've restored 2 of those networks starting from just before 10 p.m. and we are working to restore the remaining 4 networks by midnight tonight. Now, there are some unknowns in this. As we restore equipment, we may find damage that we're not currently aware of. but we are proceeding on a path to restore all customers, hopefully by midnight tonight. We'll then look at the root causes of the event and restore the system to a fully normal condition once we understand exactly what occurred and what caused the outages that we're all experiencing today.
McAvoy, you know exactly why this happened. It's not an especially hot day, and thankfully it's a Saturday in which businesses and people aren't in their offices.
Right. It does not appear related to excessive load as sometimes has occurred in the past. When we have an incident like this, we focus first on isolation of the failed equipment or the most likely restoration of the customers. And then when customers really do the full root cause investigation to identify what may have caused it. That will follow later today and tomorrow.
The lights just went on behind you. How do you feel about it?
Good job. I feel just as well as everyone in the crowd.
By the way, you're good at what you do.
Explosions. People heard explosions. Do we know what that was caused?
So I can't speak to the explosions that they may have heard. When you have incidents like this, large circuit breakers, which are the high voltage equivalent of circuit breakers in a panel in your house, operate, and they are very loud when they operate. That could have been what they heard, but I can't know for sure because there were restoration attempts made as per our procedure.
Were there fires in the manholes at any point?
So I did hear a report of a fire in a manhole. We'll investigate. Very unlikely that a fire in a manhole was the cause of an incident of this scale.
This has happened occasionally in our city. Sometimes in the winter it's ice, other times overloading. What do you think could be the cause of two incidences at the same time?
Yeah, really not able to estimate what could have caused this. We have to go through the full engineering analysis to look at the data, the facts, and the equipment condition to identify the cause.
And do we know now how many more networks are back on since this one just...
Well, we had 2 out of 6 back. We got definitely a 3rd out of 6. I'm looking to the team to see if anybody has any updated. How many do we still have out, you? But we have 5 of the 6 networks restored. 1 network remains to be restored. The Pennsylvania network, which is roughly 42nd Street to 32nd Street, Hudson River to roughly Broadway 7th Avenue.
Do you guys expect any more outages tonight with these possible unknowns?
No, we do not expect any additional outages this evening.
I have a question for the NYPD. A lot of people saw regular New Yorkers jumping into direct traffic. Didn't see a lot of police officers. I was actually in front of a precinct. Didn't see any police officers jumping into that. Can you explain what the protocol is for something like that in an emergency?
Good evening. I'm Chief Steve Hughes. I'm the commanding officer of Manhattan South. We did a level 3 mobilization, bringing units from around the city. The effective area was 4-2 to 7-2 from 5th Avenue to the west side. We implemented a vehicle traffic freeze. We were just letting city buses up at that point, stopping civilian traffic from going in there. We're in the process of bringing other units in to post offices around on each of the blocks. So there is a significant uniform presence out there now.
Can you just speak to New Yorkers, though, stepping in and when police weren't there, taking charge?
Yeah, we appreciate their assistance. I heard reports New York 1 had a gentleman, an elderly gentleman with a cane out assisting traffic. But, you know, our big purpose was to stop the traffic from coming into the area, and that's what we were focusing on first.
Chief, what do you say about the New York spirit? 1977, people jumped in those intersections to help out. I was one back then. Right. What do you say about New Yorkers being able to go through so much?
It was 42 years ago tonight that we had the blackout. So tonight, a totally different situation tonight. People came together, and we handled it pretty well. Thank you.
King Bill de Blasio, shouldn't he be here at this point?
Bill de Blasio is running for president, and he's in Waterloo, Iowa tonight.
I'd like to just thank everybody for coming out here tonight. As you can see, we have one network that is still down. We are going to continue to work closely together with PD and Fire and Con Edison. We'll get that up as soon as possible. The cooperation here has been excellent. That's why we've been able to get it restored as quickly as we have. And thank you again very much for coming out tonight.
Do we know if anybody's in elevators? Do we still have any issues with that? I mean, this came back on.
Yeah, again, we have a task force that has been going to all of the affected buildings to make sure that nobody was in elevators.
And nobody haven't found anything as of yet?
I have not gotten any reports at this moment, but we have a task force that's definitely going building to building for those buildings that were still out.
Reports of injuries or this sort of thing? reports of injuries from people?
There were no reports of injuries or fatalities, and I have been personally in touch with the mayor to get him an update on this situation.
We have a number.
All right, thank you very much.
Live on Fox News Channel right now.
You have been listening to an update by first responders, OEM,
the head of Con Edison. Yep.
Con Ed. NYPD representatives trying to update New Yorkers on exactly what is going on this evening. And the good news is that they are definitely making progress.
Yes, they talked about 6 different networks being knocked out as a result of this power outage. And we can tell you 5 of the 6, from what we just heard, are now back up and running, with the estimation being that the last one, full power restoration, should happen by midnight tonight.
And
in fact, you saw the news conference there. The lights came on at 10:31 in the midst of that news conference.
Yeah, I heard all the applause. Like, what's going on? What's going on? The video you're looking at right now, I just want to tell you, this video was shot earlier, so that's hence some of the dark areas that we are hoping at this point are back on. If you've got 5 of 6 network sectors back on, what you were seeing there was. All right, so now you are looking at the Upper West Side live pictures, and more lights are on.
If you listen carefully, you might hear the cheers from the people who finally have the power back on. A little more information that was revealed there from John McAvoy. He's the CEO of Con Edison, saying, and he called it an electrical disturbance. That initially, which disturbance might be a light word, and then someone else later called it a significant disturbance that led to this outage along parts of the west side of Manhattan, in Midtown and the west side. 6 networks again knocked out, 5 of them back up and running, expecting full restoration by midnight. As to one thing he ruled out, that it wasn't necessarily excessive load. By that meaning because this is from our studios looking outside.
Look, that is progress for us as well, because like much of the West Side, our studio was really not usable during most of this period because we didn't really have power.
But I don't see lights on out in the intersection. I see brake lights, or maybe it's our lights that are lighting the back of that individual there on the corner. But again, well, across the street there, we can see lights on it. Is that the Century 21 store? Yes, so power coming back on. But he did say, to finish my point, that it wasn't necessarily excessive load, which means a large number of people using up the system, cranking up the air conditioning on a night where it's now 81 degrees at 10:38 at night.
Yeah, he also said as they get in there and get this fixed, they wouldn't be surprised if they found some other damage along the way, but they wouldn't really know that until they have a chance to get a look at everything.
What he called it was an engineering analysis that they need to do before they're willing to go on camera and tell everyone exactly what it was that specifically caused this outage. He did point out it was unlikely that a fire in a manhole caused this.
Which is some of the things that were reported earlier.
Yes, we did hear of a fire in a manhole at 65th Street. And he quickly squashed that as being the reason. But again, there was still that transformer fire at that location where they were at 64th Street and West End Avenue.
One of the issues that we had been reporting on all evening was the possibility of people being trapped in elevators. You heard there, emergency management says there is specifically a task force tonight that is going to all the impacted buildings, building to building, to make sure that is not the case. To make sure that if anyone is trapped, that they are out of there. But again, that is something they're handling. They also were happy to say that there's been absolutely no reports of any injuries or fatalities over the evening.
I did hear one other figure, and maybe we can confirm this with Anthony in just a second. It was right near the top of the news conference, and it was 62,000 customers that lost power tonight. That's much higher than the 43,500, 700 that we heard earlier today, and perhaps those numbers are the ones down by Madison Square Garden where we understood the the Jennifer Lawrence concert was evacuated because they lost power. Jennifer Lopez concert was, thank you, I'm glad you're here, was evacuated because of the power outage there.
And again, the 62,000 is customers.
Customers, yes.
The actual number of people affected, hundreds of thousands tonight.
Anthony Johnson, he was monitoring that news conference. We heard a couple of the questions that he threw there at the head of of Con Edison. Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, you know what? The number actually is higher than that. It's over 70,000 customers. So basically, hundreds of thousands of people, mostly in this area, were without power. But ironically, as Con Ed was talking, we were sitting here pretty much in the dark with all of the buildings around us. Lo and behold, the lights came on. They said there was going to be a slow restoration, that 2 of the areas had already been restored. 6 of them were out in total. 2 were on, and then all of a sudden the lights go on right around 10:30, 10:31, and that means that 5 of the areas have now been restored. 1 area we still understand without power, but they should have power by midnight tonight. So you could hear the cheers from all the people out here on the street as soon as the lights went on. Now, they had a level 3 mobilization. We were talking to them about all of the security measures that had taken place out here this evening. Basically, what they wanted to do is just shut this area of the city down because all the street lights were out. They know they had gotten reports that people, New Yorkers, were going in the middle of the street to go ahead and direct traffic, and they really appreciated that New Yorkers did that, but they wanted to go around and shut down as much of the area as they possibly could. They continue to look to see if there was anybody stuck in elevators. No injuries, no reports of finding so far anybody in the elevators. Of course, everybody out here, all the city officials, they are very relieved because they watched as the lights went on at this location. They're going to continue to work, though, to restore all the power once again by midnight in all 6 of the locations. The folks that were out here on the street, they were absolutely phenomenal. They were patient. They were just waiting for any news and any information that they could go ahead and get. Con Ed also saying that they don't anticipate any further problems as a result of what happened here dealing with the transmission lines. They continue to look. They will go ahead and continue to survey even after their power is all back on. They will continue to look to see what the main source of this problem is or was. And now at this point in time, everybody's just pretty elated that the power is starting to come back on. And for most of the areas that were impacted, the power is definitely on, as you can see.
We were there watching when that power came back on. We heard the roar from the crowd at 10:31 when in the middle of the news conference.
It had a stadium feel.
Yeah.
It had a slight stadium feel. You know,
touchdown.
Joe, you and I are Mets fans, of course, and it was like that big moment when there was a big home run hit. Everybody started cheering, so we knew something was going on. We were actually looking at the back of the bus, the emergency management bus, and all of a sudden you could see it light up. And then we started to look around at the buildings, and you could see the lights starting to come on in all of the buildings, and folks are now starting to head back into their buildings to finally go home. They've been waiting out here for several hours.
Anthony, we just turned around the video of when the power came back on there at the news conference, and you could see it. You could see it on the faces of the people. Yeah, because all of a sudden they started smiling.
I think the Con Ed guy was so surprised that people were cheering him.
Yeah, the Con Ed guy is speaking.
That was. Right. I've never seen that before. We've seen a lot of Con Ed stories before, but they actually got a cheer. There was a big smile, and everybody started to get, a better understanding of what was taking place as far as the restoration of power. He was even talking to an assistant who was giving him the numbers about how quickly the power was going to come back on, because once this area came on, we were wondering how many other areas were left without power. He said now we're down to simply 1, and hopefully they'll be back on by midnight.
You have to think that, Anthony, those customers and those people in that one remaining network are wondering, when is it my turn?
Absolutely. Yeah. Those people, let's hope they have a little bit more patience. Of course, they're trying to get everything rectified, but hey, I got to be honest with you. Everybody at this point in time appears to be happy because the situation didn't go dramatically longer. And let's be honest, it was a beautiful summer day here in New York with enough of a breeze degrees, not too much humidity. It could have been sweltering out here as it was 42 years ago, as I remember it. But tonight was a pretty comfortable night to be out here on the sidewalk, to be out here on the street, kind of meeting your neighbors and then, you know, wanting to get answers to what was taking place.
Making the best of a bad situation.
Yeah, it was very inconvenient, but you're right, Anthony. Inconvenient, but you were not miserable, which makes a big difference.
Not miserable at all.
All right, 10:45.
Yes,
Anthony, we're going to let you go because we're going to restart things probably at the top of the hour, and I'm sure you'll make another appearance then to recap it. So great job.
We'll
good
see you
talking
there.
to you. Yes, 81 degrees outside as I look at the monitor here while Anthony and the rest of New York try and get through what has been a very, very long night in portions of Midtown and the west side of Manhattan.
Yeah, and Amy Freeze in tonight for Jeff Smith. She can fill us in on just about, you know, how miserable, what the misery index was tonight as compared to what it could be on a July night in New York City. 81 degrees, not too humid. Always better to have the AC working, and for a lot of people that has happened here in the last few minutes. Con Ed again restoring power in 5 of 6 sections. That power knocked out around 6:47 tonight is what Con Ed CEO Mr. McAvoy said. At the height of the power outage, Anthony told us there were about 70,000 customers without power. Customers translates really in New York City into hundreds of thousands of people.
And it's interesting because as the night went on, that number started at 20. And it went, I think, to 40 or 30, and then it was 62, we heard, and then all the way up to 70,000 customers, which, yes, is thousands of people.
And some of that, perhaps, the cascading nature of the outage.
And perhaps that's also what prompted Mayor de Blasio to change his mind, to put a halt to his presidential campaign stop in Iowa and hop on a plane and come back to the Big Apple, for sure.
Governor Cuomo on the phone with us earlier this evening. Now, this is, what is that, Street Spotter?
Yeah, that's the Street Spotter from Newscopter 7, and at night, and the brightest thing on there is the Street Spotter itself. But again, power slowly being restored, and now you're looking up 42nd Street. Well, so you're looking, I guess, east there from 8th to 7th.
Yeah, there's the Lincoln
5th.
Tunnel, 7th. Yeah, that's looking east.
So what a night it's been. But again, we're not there just yet. Governor Cuomo telling us earlier tonight, I've seen this movie before. And it's not a movie that he liked the first time, and he didn't want to see it a second time, which is just a funny way of saying that he's frustrated because there were supposed to be preventative, redundant measures to keep such a rolling outage from occurring.
Yeah, you heard Anthony there talking about people out there tonight enjoying the evening, even though they were a little frustrated they couldn't get back into their apartments because there was no AC, there was no power. 81 degrees, I think, is the temperature about now. Amy Freeze in tonight for Jeff Smith. Amy, we know that it could be a whole lot more miserable on a July night in New York than it was tonight.
It really can, and that has a lot to do with what the humidity is doing. And fortunately, this weekend, we're actually in a low humidity pattern. So 81 does not feel as uncomfortable or as oppressive as it could for this time of year. We did hit 89 at LaGuardia, same at Newark. In Central Park, we had a high of 86. There was plenty of warmth around, but we've seen those temperatures drop off. And here's the forecast for overnight tonight, dropping our temperatures into the upper 70s, even low 70s. And these are numbers for the city itself. We do get a quick warm up again tomorrow. We're going to get back near 90 degrees, lots of sunshine, but overnight lower humidity and temperatures in the low to mid 70s should be pretty bearable, pretty easy to take. I think all in all, you look at a situation like this and you think of things that could be worse. And if we were dealing with high humidity and temperatures in the middle 80s still overnight, that would be extremely uncomfortable. But just coming back and forth here in the neighborhood, I saw a lot of the buses that pick up for cooling centers and to help people in different types of housing and some of the elderly, getting them to cool spots. So kind of does depend on what your building does with air conditioning and the flow of air that you've got going on. But certainly could be worse if we had a very humid humid air pattern in place.
Yeah, so we did get lucky all the way around here tonight, didn't we, Amy?
Absolutely. We don't have any storms around. So many people had to come outside of their buildings, too, to kind of figure out what to do and if they were going to walk up the several flights of stairs or wait it out. You know, some of the elevators weren't working. So there's so many things that could have gone wrong with being outside, and at least the weather was somewhat cooperative.
And cooperative were so many New Yorkers. We saw them out on the street helping to direct traffic.
It was incredible.
Yeah,
I mean, it really was. Yes, brave, bold, and very gracious, many of them, especially for New Yorkers who don't always drive. The pedestrians were out there doing it just right, and that really shows how everybody can come together. So a lot of people out in their cars, too, charging their phones and just out on the streets there trying to make sense of what they needed to get done. Not too many people upset or yelling or frustrated, and I'll tell you who did really well tonight, the carts, the food carts. Yeah. Everybody waiting online. They wanted to get some food somewhere and they found it.
Yeah, they weren't relying on the electrical grid to to cook up their food.
And all the stores and restaurants were shut down, but had fun.
Yeah, it was not a normal Saturday night in New York City, but I think it turned out to be one a lot better than we expected. And look, let's face it, the fact that we're having this conversation and saying that the power is coming back on
is good news.
That makes it feel a whole lot better right about now, right?
Yes, we'll all have relief when we see the lights come back on for sure. But the fact that they're able to work on it, and hopefully they were able to get everyone out of those elevators and the sticky situations that they were in, hopefully it all has a good ending.
Amy, did you see the guy in the video that we had earlier? I mean, we had guys directing and people directing traffic while it was still daylight, but as the sun started to set, right around 8:30, there were some individuals with glow sticks out in the middle of an intersection, making sure that they could be seen as it was getting dark, and at the same time, you know, directing traffic.
I did see one guy at the intersection. I think around, there's a glow stick. I saw one guy at an intersection around 60th, and I guess it was Broadway. He had a cell phone out, using a cell phone light to kind of make sure he was seen. So.
Okay, where do you get a glow stick?
At this hour.
I don't know.
Where do you get a glow stick? The other thing, Amy, is we said at one point this evening when this thing was just getting kicked off that there was one source of power tonight that we're not going to have any trouble wondering whether or not it was going to be on, and that was the sun setting Manhattan hinge tonight.
Yes.
It was absolutely gorgeous, and that's a reason a lot of folks were out on the street, especially between, say, 23rd all the way up to 57th, right as this was all happening. And so there were crowds and crowds of people to witness, the city going dark. So much video out on Twitter and social media apps of what was happening in Times Square just as the sun was going down. And it captured all of this happening.
And what was interesting is that you pointed out that some of the best streets to see Manhattan hinge are those streets where there's traffic in both directions. 23rd Street, 14th Street, 79th Street, 72nd Street, 57th, et cetera.
Absolutely.
And to get your best shot, you need to be in the street. And now there's no traffic lights, so it was really a difficult situation.
That was a little bit of a free-for-all.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. The pedestrians took over.
One thing that was remarkable is just how quickly we also saw emergency responders. I saw FDNY coming from all different parts of the city. There were a lot of ambulances out just, momentarily after the lights went out. And what a rally for the emergency response to be out there and help people.
Yeah, you have to wonder, Amy, if that was part of the Office of Emergency Management, response to an event like this, where they go to check in on the elderly, to check in on seniors. In fact, I heard someone in the news conference say that they have a list of people who to go check in on and to go look at and to go see. And
so organized.
Yeah, that's advanced planning.
Yeah, and then there's a task force that specifically, even at this point in time, they're now going to some of these affected buildings to make sure that there wasn't someone, trapped in an elevator too long, and to make sure that all of those elevators are back up and working. Now, this is a live camera from Newscopter 7?
Yep.
All right. So you can see here that there is still a portion of Manhattan that is still dark. A portion of the west side there. I think
there's only there it is right there. So you can see almost a smaller block than what it was earlier tonight. The section of the west side of Manhattan and where the power is still out, and that must be that one final network, one of the 6 that has not had its power restored. 5 of those 6 are back on. We've got the pleasure of joining us now, Jim Dolan. Jim Dolan is outside Madison Square Garden. Hey, Jim, you've got a smile, so that's good news. Tell us all about the concert.
Well, I wish I could tell you about the concert. I know that it was 3 songs long. It was a very short concert, very brief. They got right out after the 3rd song. It seemed to take a while for that 4th song to start. Everybody thought it was a dramatic pause, and then the announcements came out. There was no power. They had to evacuate the building. 25,000. You know, this is Jennifer Lopez. She had no problem selling this place out, and it was sold out. 25,000 people inside the Garden tonight, and they all had to make their way out without air conditioning, without escalators. It was a very difficult transition. You know, folks were in a good mood, I have to say, and we didn't hear any negative stories about anything that happened on the way out, other than everybody was really disappointed that they didn't get to hear more of the show.
Yeah, Joe's disappointed he didn't get to see Jennifer Lopez either. Jim, look, you've got a long history here, decades. This ain't your first rodeo or power outage, is it?
No, it's not. Hey, listen, I have to tell you, I met a woman tonight who was at a Broadway show in 1977. It was her birthday when the lights went out in 77. She was at this concert tonight when the lights went out. It was her birthday tonight, obviously. She has 2 of the best power outage stories in history, and she was telling me about it tonight. Actually, she was more interested in the one in 1977. She was there to see Oh Calcutta, which you guys remember what that show was.
Okay. Yes.
And she was there with a guy who later became her husband. So they've been married ever since.
So was he at the show with her tonight, too?
Yeah, no, she was with all her girlfriends. It was her birthday. She was with all her girlfriends, and the husband got to stay home tonight.
Oh, man.
Well, next time she has a birthday celebration in New York City, I'm not sure many of her friends are going to want to attend. the track record isn't so good.
Want to be there. Hey, you guys know that I live in this area that was blacked out tonight, right? I had to walk down 16 floors to come out and be with you guys tonight, but I was happy to do it.
Well, at least it was down, Jim.
It's going to be as easy, but
at least it was going down, says Sandra.
At the end of the night, Sandra, I have to go upstairs at the end of the night.
But the lights are supposed to be back.
Happy to be with you guys.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, Jim. Appreciate you coming in. Thanks so much. Yeah, Jim's story, one of many people in New York City. Thank you. In New York City, where the elevators are out, which means if you're heading out, you're going down the stairs, and you're hoping that when it's time to go up the stairs, the power's back on.
Yeah, Con Ed is telling us that the company's hopeful that by midnight, they will have all of the sections that were out this evening back on. 5 of 6 sectors back on tonight. The power back on.
And it didn't seem to be any sort of sequence because Sandy Kenyon was over in Times Square. He was the first indicator of lights coming back on. So that's right there in Times Square. And then we heard 64th Street, right, coming back up. So one sector remaining, one network remaining to come back on.
And let's hope that that midnight time frame is correct. We also should point out that that power outage tonight has just wreaked havoc on the transportation system, at least along the west side. We know that some trains, particularly the number 2 train along the west side in Manhattan, was running, very packed. But we also know that stations were very, very dark. The MTA, in fact, early on asked people not to go downstairs to the underground stations because the platforms were dark and it could be dangerous. We heard from some people out this evening that have had to walk home, some of them likely still walking, or at least trying to figure out what train can I get on, what bus can I get on to get to where I'm going.
And let's give a shout out once again, we mentioned it earlier, to the MTA and the New York City transit workers who put a plan of action into work when the power went out. Many of the trains eased their way into the next station, the next available station, which was the first one they came across. And what was it? They brought the first car of the subway train to the platform, which was dark, and that way you're able to crowd control, if you will.
Funnel everybody out through that one car onto the train, onto that dark platform where there was some emergency lighting in some instances.
And other MTA workers waiting to make sure that people got out safely. So the fact that there are no injuries reported tonight is just some credit where credit's due. So many, many thanks to the New York City transit workers who made sure that getting in and out of the subways, could be done safely, effectively, and without injury.
You got the feeling tonight you were dealing with a whole lot of pros.
Yes, for sure. But again, as the governor put it, not a movie he's seen before, but it's not a movie that he wanted to see again.
Yeah, we know there's going to be quite the postmortem this week in the days to come to try to figure out what happened, how it happened, and how to keep it from happening again.
Yes, and as the night goes on or into tomorrow, we'll be talking about the economic impact of shutting down a large section of New York City on the west side on a Saturday night in July.
Eyewitness News at 11 begins right now.
This is breaking news from Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Blackout in Manhattan. Miles of the west side plunged into darkness after a massive power outage. The lights of Times Square out. Strap hangers trapped underground. New Yorkers forced to see their way by candlelight. Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Torres.
And I'm Sandra Bookman. That outage affected large swaths of Manhattan, including our station here on the Upper West Side. It knocked out lights in the studio, so we tonight are coming to you from our newsroom.
Thanks for sticking with us throughout the night, because the power went out at 6:47 p.m. It is starting to return. Con Ed is now vowing that most people in Manhattan will have the power restored by midnight, an hour from now. Until then, this was the scene. Traffic lights are out. Police and volunteers guiding the cars and the traffic by hand.
And the situation in the subways, well, that was not much better. Platforms were dangerously dark. Strap hangers on the trains forced to evacuate.
In Times Square, stunned tourists saw the famous billboards there darkened.
And here's what it looks like from a bird's eye view. News Copter 7 high above Manhattan. You can see, and I am going to presume that that is a portion of the city still without lights at this point in time. And here's a look at what Con Ed described as the outage from 42nd Street to 72nd Street, from the Hudson River to 5th Avenue. We have a team of reporters covering all angles of this story. We're going to begin tonight with Eyewitness News reporter Anthony Johnson, who was at a Con Ed news conference when the lights started coming back on. Anthony?
Yeah, Con Ed started talking to us about the situation, telling us that it was slowly starting to improve at that moment. They told us that 2 of the sections, there were a total of 6 that were without power all along the west side. At that point, 2 of the sections had come on. Power had been restored. Then just after 10:30, the word went out and the lights went on as we were there for the press conference. Let's let you hear the moment at the press conference when the lights went on out here at 64th and West End.
That will follow later today.
The lights just went on behind you. How do you feel about it?
Good job. Good job.
I feel just...
Yeah, that was pretty much the exciting moment here. They were giving us the update about the power coming back on. At that point in time, 3 other sections came back on. There's still 1 section, they're telling us, without power. That will be restored by midnight. But it was quite a scene out here all evening long. Starting around 6:45, a lot of people started gathering out here on the street. They were wondering specifically what was taking place, how long it was going to be before the power was finally restored. And for most of the people in this section, right after 10:30, the power did go back on as Con Edison was giving us an update on this outage.
We expedited the recovery, performed an initial assessment of what was the most likely cause, isolated that equipment, inspected the other equipment to identify any obvious abnormalities, and now we have started the restoration process.
And once again, at the beginning of this whole thing, we're talking about 73,000 customers without power. That represents basically hundreds of thousands of people all along the west side. Earlier tonight when we arrived out here on West End, all of the lights were out. You could not see in any of the buildings. They were completely dark. And as the night sky started to fall, you could just see that there were people already starting to light candles in some of the upper windows. People were worried, concerned about how long it was, of course, going to take. Things out here on the street, the people were calm, but they just wanted to try to get as much information as they possibly could. But they were extremely happy when the power came back on. If we could take a moment, let's just show you what it looks like. This is West End looking south. That would be like looking towards 42nd Street. You can see the lights are on. You can see the power is starting to be fully restored. And most of the area, you can see all of the red lights, the brake lights. They still have not allowed traffic to come into this area. They started to block off traffic simply because they just didn't want too many people driving on streets where the lights were not working. We've heard the stories, of course, about people out here helping New Yorkers get through some of these crowded intersections. So they just wanted to shut all the traffic down. We assume slowly tonight they'll start to restore traffic out here along West End. But once again, as we've been saying, one area, one section still without power this evening, and Con Ed expects that to be restored out here by midnight. But it was quite a night out here in New York City, especially on the west side.
Anthony, thank you. What a night in the big city for sure. In fact, Mayor Bill de Blasio, he is now on his way back to New York City. The mayor was on the presidential campaign trail today in Iowa.
Before making the decision to return, Mayor de Blasio told us he was relieved that the outage was due to a simple mechanical issue.
Well, the thing I was most worried about did get, at least as of this moment, resolved, that this not be an indicator of something worse. Now my central concern is how quickly we can, get Con Ed to restore this power. And if it's going to be something done quickly, that's one thing. If we expect it to be more a prolonged process, then we need to figure out what it's going to take to help people.
Meanwhile, we also spoke with Governor Andrew Cuomo, who gave us a rundown of what the state was doing to help.
I'm sending a couple of hundred state police to the city immediately to help with traffic control. I also called up the National Guard, who can help with traffic control situations like that. So I just want to make sure that we are prepared.
The governor did express his frustration with Con Ed's inconsistent time estimates throughout the evening.
The power outage also left strap hangers stranded underground. At least 2 trains lost power with people on board.
Video shows dark platforms, people forced to evacuate. Eyewitness News reporter Naveen Dhaliwal is at Columbus Circle tonight, where she talked to some of those strap hangers. Naveen?
Yeah, Sandra, the entrances to the subway train stations were closed or have been closed all evening. But I'm going to show you something that we have not seen all night. Take a look. There's light. Yes, the lights are back on. The barricade's still here as the MTA tries to figure out which trains will be running through here first, because there will be obviously delays as we've dealt with this. Now, earlier today, many had a rough ride. Boy, did they ever. They spent more than an hour on some trains as they came to a halt the moment the power outage took effect. Now, we saw thousands of people exiting the station here at Columbus Circle. They looked very tired. They were hot, but they made it their way out. Now, they say they had no cell service, so they had no answers. They had no idea there was a power outage in the first place. Many were panicked, but others concerned for their safety. But for the most part, they say they stayed calm, helped each other until some light was shed.
I was worried it was a safety thing. People have to go to the bathroom. We need food, we need water. You have people pacing around because their legs were cramping up. It was scary. I was fine, but other people around me, we don't know what these people are going through.
We got to 81st and the train to shut down. Then we was out with no power for till 7:52. Then they said, we're going to make you walk through the carts. So we started walking through the carts, and they said, if you want to get to Brooklyn, you basically have to transfer to the east side.
Horrible. It's dark. My daughter's scared. We don't know, thousands of people who are, we don't know when the light is going to come back on or whatever. We still walking right now. It's been 2 hours already.
And that was Annette, who walked from 34th Street all the way up here to Columbus Circle with her young daughter. Many questions, a lot of confusion. And even right now, you can see the police officers here trying to answer questions for people who need to get on the trains. But it's going to be a little while before those questions can be answered and those trains are up and running full service. We're live in Columbus Circle tonight. I'm Naveen Dhaliwal, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, Naveen, thank you. Not far away from you, the blackout affected the Great White Way. Broadway shows did not go on.
Yeah, even Times Square saw some of its lights knocked out. Eyewitness News reporter Sandy Kenyon is there.
Joe and Sandra, the lights are back on here in Times Square, and over on 7th Avenue, the traffic is flowing again. You can see the lights in the stores, the crowds. Before this, a few hours before, it was a very different scene, a different story, a story filled with doubt and uncertainty. The west side of Times Square went dark. Over on the east side, it seemed like just another Saturday evening, but it wasn't.
So usually in Times Square, everything is all lit up, and where the ball drops, that's even down. So the entire place on the right-hand side is literally a ghost town right now of all the stores. Massive amounts of people all over the place, though. We thought it was something that was a terrorist attack or something major like that, and we didn't know what was going on because we had seen more people than we've ever seen in the city before.
I thought they was going to do a show or something, but they ended up didn't do nothing.
Were you ever scared?
No, it was beautiful to me.
The blackout meant Broadway's bright lights couldn't shine. What was it like inside?
It was really kind of cool. Everybody was together on the stage, kind of just hanging out, singing songs, stretching, just trying to figure out what was going to happen. And they told us the show is canceled, and now everybody's heading home.
Disappointment was definitely in the air.
We came all the way from Austin, Texas to see Hamilton for her birthday.
Oh. This was my anniversary gift to my wife. We've been waiting for her since it opened to get these tickets, and we finally got them.
Christmas present.
March 38th.
Disappointed.
Yeah, disappointed.
The lights went out just as crowds gathered for the evening's performances, making the NYPD's job that much more difficult.
Biggest concern right now is getting these people that came out the theaters on the sidewalk so we get these emergency vehicles through.
And it was hours before the crowd dispersed. In Times Square, here in Times Square, things may have returned to a festive air, but we are very well aware that elsewhere in our city, there are those facing hardship tonight. Reporting live from Times Square, I'm Sandy Kenyon, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
That's a normal, rowdy New York Saturday night Times Square crowd. Thank you very much,
His
Sandy.
fans, for sure.
Yeah. The world's most famous arena also went dark tonight.
Yeah, Jennifer Lopez, J-Lo, had to scrap her concert at Madison Square Garden. Eyewitness News reporter Jim Dolan at the Garden tonight with more on that. Jim?
Joe, no surprise, hometown girl Jennifer Lopez had no problem selling out the Garden tonight, and her fans were so eager to hear her sing. They were all in their seats, and they did hear 3 songs. And then take a look at this. Between the 3rd and the 4th song, there seemed to be a long delay there between those 2 songs. Some people thought it was part of the show, maybe dramatic effect. And then, bang, the lights went out like much of the Upper West Side and Midtown Manhattan. And all those people, a packed house without any escalators, without any elevators, without any air conditioning, had to make their way out of the Garden. It was a hardcore Jennifer Lopez crowd in the dark outside the Garden tonight, but it was even darker inside. 25,000 fans were 3 songs into the show. And the Garden went dark.
It was just black, no lights, nothing, no information. Everybody got crazy.
And it just went blacked out. And that was it. It was just the most scariest thing ever.
A lot of fans thought it was part of the show.
I thought it was a great dramatic pause. Everyone's screaming, J-Lo! You know, you're into it. And then they're like, evacuate the building.
And then the power went out, and I thought it was like the pause where everyone goes to the bathroom and that's and stuff.
Oh, you
like
thought they were
break.
just pausing, like an intermission almost.
Yeah, like an intermission.
But it wasn't intermission either. The Garden, like much of Midtown and the Upper West Side, was devoured in darkness, and all those people had to make their way out.
It was a little scary since I'm only 7.
It was scary for people much older.
Getting out was very scary because it was very crowded, and we all exit out through each exit around, and you could actually see smoke.
Did you hear that little girl? She said she was scared because she's only 7 years old, but everybody was a little scared getting out of the Garden. Remember, a lot of folks were in wheelchairs. They had to make their way out. And again, no air conditioning. So, but everybody did get out of the Garden. It is still dark, by the way. Power's still not restored here. That could take a little while. Reporting live from Midtown, Jim Dolan, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, hopefully you'll have the power there by midnight. That was the estimation. So you're in that one network that still needs to have its power restored. Many of the restaurants in Hell's Kitchen managed to stay open during the blackout.
Which is a pretty incredible feat when you consider you don't have power. Our Sam Ryan is live now with that part of the story, including a look at what happened when the lights came back on. Sam?
That's right, Sandra, on Restaurant Row here in the Hell's Kitchen section of Manhattan. We are just a few blocks away from the bright lights of Times Square. Everything up and running now. A short time ago when this was dark, it was challenging for restaurant owners to keep everything operational and challenging for the pedestrians trying to maneuver through the sidewalks, the dark sidewalks, many using their cell phone flashlights to find their ways. As far as the restaurants, some found creative ways to stay open, and some didn't mind the inconvenience. So there's a decent crowd here tonight. The kitchen's not open though, right?
Kitchen, no, we can't. It's a little too hot in the kitchen without the extractor fans and the exhaust and whatnot, yeah. New York has been through some blackouts before. It's not the first one. Feels a little like the purge, but it's not so bad. We got a lot of candles. We got these floodlights, got some headlamps.
This man ran to the local hardware store the minute the blackout hit, bought headlamps and candles, all the batteries in the world.
You have a crowd here tonight. Everybody's sitting down, eating, unfazed. I see the lights on. How is everything functioning here?
We're trying to do our best, you know. We serving some wine and beer and some cool stuff. We're trying to make everyone happy. We got to make the best of what we can.
Okay, so how are the lights? Are these battery-operated lights?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so you moved everything outside, basically. So
yeah, we tried to put everybody out since the AC doesn't work and stuff. So we got everybody out. And everybody's happy, having a good time.
So battery-operated lights and candles. And here's the response. If we take a look at this.
This fans from Canada. See, everyone is happy.
And just as we were speaking to them, the power was restored in that area along 9th Avenue. That crowd sitting there, they were from Canada. So not only did they experience the Toronto Blue Jays win over the Yankees at Yankee Stadium this afternoon, they come to New York City, they experienced the blackout. They didn't seem to mind dining al fresco, and then the power was restored. So they all took it in, and they said they had a great time during it all, but finding creative ways for these restaurants to stay open, guys. Right now we are live in Hell's Kitchen. Sam Ryan, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Sam, wine and beer, yeah, that'll go a long way towards helping keep people happy on a very busy night. All right, Sam, thank you. As we mentioned at the top of the newscast, we also affected by the massive power outage. Our computers went out, along with all the TVs and the monitors we used to put on a newscast. And then moments later, the generators kicked in, and we started broadcasting our special report on the outage. And again, that was much earlier tonight.
Yeah, around 6:47 to be exact. Now, coincidentally, this massive power outage happened exactly 42 years to the day of the 1977 New York City blackout. This is a look at our coverage on that day right here on Channel 7. The 1977 blackout was an electricity blackout that affected most of New York City from July 13th to July 14th. The big difference, it was most of the city. Then today, just the Upper West Side, as we said, essentially 72nd Street to roughly
down into the
30s on
even
the west side of Manhattan.
Madison Square Garden as well.
We invite you guys to stay with us. Stay with Eyewitness News and ABC7 NY for continuing coverage of this huge power outage. We will continue to keep you updated on air and at ABC7 NY as the power is restored. You can also sign up to receive breaking news alerts on our free news app.
We were there for you then. We were there for you tonight. Our other big news story of the night, torrential rain from Barry drenching the South. We're already starting to see some of the damaging effects.
Yes, the storm has flooded highways and homes. The Coast Guard has had to rescue people from rooftops. Some people have even helped rescue livestock and other wildlife that has been out in the dangerous flooding.
Fortunately, very fortunately, none of the main levees on the Mississippi River failed or breached. ABC senior meteorologist Rob Marciano reports from New Orleans.
Tonight, floodwaters rising on the outskirts of New Orleans. Lakeshore Drive and Mandeville inundated with storm surge. High winds and heavy rain have city officials bracing for the worst.
The primary risk continues to remain heavy rains for the city of New Orleans.
This levee south of the city spilling over, one of several to breach, submerging vulnerable neighborhoods.
We have our boats, generators, as well as our high water vehicles stationed across the city in preparation for any events that we may face within the next 24 to 36 hours.
Authorities are confident that the levees and these flood walls will not be overtopped. The question is how much heavy rainfall falls into the city that sits below sea level, and can the massive pumps like this one keep pushing that water out? Earlier in the week, a much smaller storm dumping enough rain to overwhelm those pumps and flood downtown. New Orleans hoping they can keep up, this time with a tropical storm. In nearby Baton Rouge, locals stacking sandbags, hopeful they can avoid a disaster. Alex Perez is there.
The vicious wind already creating some big problems. This massive tree came crashing down into the middle of the street onto this power line and snapping this utility pole just like a twig. And the window of concern here far from over. The rain and the wind will persist here in Baton Rouge through the night.
Flooding killed 13 here in 2016, a tragedy still fresh in people's memory.
Not looking forward to it, but the main talk is just praying that it won't be as bad as they're forecasting as far as the river flood stage.
Rob Marciano, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Stay with Eyewitness News and ABC News for the very latest as we track Barry's movements. We'll also have updates at ABC7NY and on Eyewitness News this morning beginning at 6 a.m.
We are bringing you continuing coverage of our breaking news, that power outage in Manhattan. At this point, one network remains down. We're told that affects about 10,000 customers.
That's the Pennsylvania network, according to Con Edison, and it runs from 42nd Street to 32nd Street, from Broadway to the river, and again, 10,000 customers, that is. We also want to tell you that Governor Cuomo will be holding a news conference just in the next few minutes. We will bring it to you live. Stay with us.
Next live, it's a full house with Joel McHale from Card Sharks, plus Ryan Eggold and Gone West performs.
Can you shuffle these?
Watch live
Monday morning at 9 on ABC7.
How do you win over fans? You give them something no one else can, something they can't get enough of. And then you give them more. Hurry in to see why Ram has the most loyal half-ton pickup owners during the Ram Summer Clearance event.
Now get 20% off MSRP on select 2019 Ram 1500 Classic models in dealer stock. Or while qualified lessees of competitive vehicles get this low mileage lease on the 2019 Ram 1500 Classic.
Thanks for the ride along, Captain. I've never been in one of these before, even though Geico is... Oh, here we go. Here we go.
You got cut off there. What were you saying? Oh, no. Maybe the Geico's been proudly serving the military for over 75 years? Is that what you wanted to say? Mm-hmm. I have to say, you seem a lot chattier on TV.
Geico, proudly serving the military for over 75 years.
You okay back there, buddy?
No countdowns, no memberships, just great deals and great service at Raymore and Flanagan's first ever Premier Days. Choose your own deal. Take 10% off anything in store or online with coupon code Premier10. Plus doorbusters like $500 off this sectional and 50% off in-store floor samples with no interest financing for 72 months with equal payments. Premier deals, Premier service, 2-day Premier delivery. Shop Premier Days now at Raymore and Flanagan.
Let it go, let it go.
Let yourself go.
Let it go.
You've never seen Frozen like this.
Let it go, let it go.
Great seats available now at frozenthemusical.com.
Make yourself comfortable. Make yourself comfortable, baby.
Back on Eyewitness News at 11 o'clock with one of the more interesting things we saw during the blackout. Ordinary people directing traffic. This is video that was taken right around 8 o'clock tonight. We actually saw two different men at adjacent corners helping to prevent accidents and gridlock. Power, as you know by now, is starting to come back on. Con Ed says most customers will have electricity by midnight. We're bringing you continuing coverage. We'll have more updates throughout this broadcast and on ABC7 NY, as well as a Governor Cuomo news conference in a few minutes. Now to another big story. President Trump's immigration raids set to begin tomorrow.
Here's a look at all of the cities that will be targeted, including New York City. Those planned raids planned in New Orleans and Houston have been postponed because of Tropical Storm Barry. ABC's David Wright has the latest.
As ICE prepares to round up thousands of undocumented immigrants Sunday, Vice President Mike Pence toured two detention centers near the Texas border.
This is tough stuff. I knew we would see a system that is overcrowded. It's overwhelmed.
Some of the cages standing room only. The heat sweltering, the smell overpowering. The men have no ready access to water, no cots to sleep on, just the concrete floor. Some of them said they'd been here 40 days.
We are not a terrorist.
The vice president also met with children being held in a different area.
Are you comfortable? Are you being well taken care of? Okay.
Pence's upbeat exchange in stark contrast to the chilling first-hand accounts of young detainees filed last month in federal court in California. One 17-year-old from Guatemala told his court-appointed lawyer, "It's always cold in the cage."
Different from what we hear from many of the critics. I couldn't be more impressed with the compassionate work that our Customs and Border Protection are doing here at this facility.
Democrats in Congress were close to tears as they described what they witnessed at another Texas facility.
Imagine traveling thousands of miles in grueling and dangerous conditions because you have no other option only to be separated from your family, from your children, thrown into overcrowded cages, denied a shower, toothbrush, and yes, Mr. Chairman, drink water out of the toilet.
With ICE now hoping to round up some 2,000 undocumented immigrants this weekend, advocacy groups are pushing back with protests like this one in cities across the country.
If they're not doing any harm and they're not breaking any laws, why should they get deported? Especially if they have kids.
Go to ABC7NY for some important things to know about your rights if ICE agents show up at your home or building.
Coming up, continuing coverage of the power outage in Manhattan. In the next few minutes, we're expecting a news conference from Governor Cuomo. We will bring it to you live.
And meteorologist Amy Freeze in tonight for Jeff Smith is back with an update on the AccuWeather forecast.
Closed captioning is sponsored by Raymore and Flanagan. Find it, feel it, furnish it fast.
The rule of three states, things that come in threes are inherently more appealing. We couldn't agree more. 3 SUVs, 1 GMC. Current eligible non-GM lessees get this low-mileage lease on this all-wheel drive Acadia SLE1 for around $229 per month. Or get this low-mileage lease on this all-wheel drive Terrain for around $189 per month.
What does real feel like? This summer at SeaWorld Orlando, it feels amazing. Your inner superhero ignites as you plunge down new Infinity Falls, the world's tallest drop. Your eyes grow wide with wonder as you meet furry friends at the new Sesame Street land. And your heart races as Electric Ocean lights up the night. Don't miss summer at SeaWorld Orlando. Save $50 on select tickets. SeaWorld, real feels amazing.
Over on Pixar. Fashionably late as usual.
Margaret, you must share this recipe.
Oh, absolutely. It's a 300-year-old technique called flambe.
Cooking with fire. How delightfully primitive.
In the future, we don't know how you'll share recipes, but we know you'll still share them. At Altice, we're building an enhanced network to connect you in ways you've never dreamed of. And intelligent Wi-Fi and 10 gig internet are just the beginning.
May I?
Enough of that, Walter. Please excuse Walter. He's an older model. Oh, dear.
Channel 7 takes you inside New York Presbyterian Hospital for a look at some of the most extraordinary medical stories. Watch Medical Marvels, a Channel 7 exclusive online series, only on abc7ny.com.
The nature of a virus is to change, move, mutate. Today, life-changing technology from Abbott is helping hunt them down at their source. Because the faster we can identify new viruses, the faster we can get to stopping them. The most personal technology is technology with the power to change your life. Life to the fullest.
Toyota joins ABC-7 in celebrating 50 years since the Apollo 11 mission. We salute the incredible efforts of those who worked tirelessly to land 2 men on the moon and safely bring them home. Toyota, let's go places. Eyewitness News needs your help to protect our children. Have you seen Winter Star? ABC-7 and your Tri-State Ford dealers thank you for helping protect our children.
We're slowly but surely, the lights are on in most places. I think we're still dark from 2-6 to 4-2, from 9th Avenue West over to the river, but I'm sure Con Ed will take care of that too.
Are you happy with the response tonight, Commissioner?
Yeah, I am very happy. We had 250 cops immediately deployed up to the area to take care of traffic issues. ESU did a great job. Captain Tom Trainer is here with all of his people. The fire department, the firefighters, EMS did a great job too, taking people out of elevators and looking after people that are on life support.
And how do you respond so quickly? I mean, you guys were out here on the spot. I saw you converging right here on 64th. How do you get one of those?
This is something that we have plans for. Every precinct has a plan. Every patrol borough has a plan. The city has a plan. If there's a blackout, and we've had them before. As I said before, 2003 in August was the last one. I was a precinct commander. I think Steve was a precinct commander back then. So we've lived through this, and we know we really know what we need to do.
What went through your mind when you heard this happening tonight? Where were you? What went through your mind? What were you thinking?
Well, it's a Saturday, so I was home, but hopefully it was going to be contained, but it started to spread a little bit further and further, and we started to bring more and more people in. So,
in terms of like a practice for New York's always on the top of every terrorism list, how does this feel response-wise?
No, when it first started happening, of course, that's what we looked at, and I was in contact with the New York office of the FBI. They said it was not a cyber event. There was no criminality involved, so that pushed tensions down a little bit. And it was up to Con Ed to figure out what the issue was and how we're going to get lights on as quickly as possible, because it is, as you said, it's a hot night. I can see everybody sweating here.
And in terms of everybody in their place, everybody getting what they needed to get done, responding quickly, do you feel good about that for when the big one happens?
Yeah, no, I do. I feel really good about it. The way we collaborate with all of our law enforcement partners, the way we collaborate with the fire department and EMS, it's relatively seamless. And we've had a number of major events over the last 3 or 4 years, and we get better and better at it.
Have you spoken to the mayor, governor tonight about the situation?
I've been in contact with the mayor, keeping him up to date all along. John Miller and I and Chief Hughes have kept him in the loop. He knows exactly what happened, and he knows the lights are back on. So he was real proud of the first responders in New York City tonight. All right, thank you very much. All right, thank you.
You've been listening to New York City Police Commissioner James O'Neill. He's on the Upper West Side tonight answering questions about the power outage that has gripped a large portion of the west side of Manhattan tonight. He's given a thumbs up.
Yeah, he was happy.
Response so far as Con Ed works to get the rest of the lights back on.
All right, Amy Freeze, you heard the commissioner reference it. It's pretty humid out there, hot out there, 81 degrees, right?
Well, it's hot, yeah, holding on to 81, but surprisingly, the humidity is pretty low for what it could be this time of year. So I know they felt like they were sweating it out just a little bit, but it wasn't actually all terrible. Right now, we've got 81 degrees, and temperatures are going to be cooling off into the 70s here momentarily. We're going down to the upper 70s overnight. Looking at daytime highs across the area, we got to near 90 in a lot of spots. We made it to 86 in Central Park. Tomorrow is a repeat of this happening again. Temperatures pushing the upper 80s. Right now, you can see some of the cooling that's going down, so we're slipping into the 70s in a lot of spots. That's going to be the case overnight tonight, and then starting off the day tomorrow will be generally in the 70s early tomorrow morning. So a few 60s for the northern counties, but the city itself will be in the 70s overnight. Just a light wind coming in, so not a lot of relief from the wind, but you could do the windows open as our temperatures fall into the 70s briefly, and then we're right back into the heat tomorrow. Humidity really holds off until really Tuesday into Wednesday. We start to feel that stifling, oppressive feel to the atmosphere. Skies are mostly clear tonight, just a few patchy clouds, and tomorrow during the day, lots of sunshine as the temperatures climb quickly, pushing those upper 80s to near 90 degrees. Wouldn't be surprised to see a few 90s 90s in the afternoon for inland New Jersey. Everybody else looking great, from really the shorelines, Jersey Shore, from out to the Hamptons, back into the Catskills. We have beautiful conditions, and in fact, the higher elevations of the Catskills, one place that we could actually be cooler than everywhere else with a high of 79. Jersey Shore 85 on Sunday afternoon. The Hamptons closing out the weekend at 81 degrees. As far as the water goes, some of the buoys are reading all the way up to 75 degrees. A low to moderate rip current risk tomorrow. So you go there, it's hot at the beach, you want to get into the waters, make sure you check in with the lifeguards and make sure everything is set and getting in there in a safe area where there are no rip currents. All right, another beauty to close out the weekend, but Monday also looking good for us. We can stay in the 80s very easily. In fact, down the stretch, 86 or hotter. We're going to get into the 90s for the middle part of the week. AccuWeather 7-day forecast does have some storms returning as early as Wednesday and Thursday. Then on Friday, we're hot and humid with temperatures in the low 90s as well. Coming up in a few minutes, you guys, in the second half hour, we'll talk just a little bit about Barry and the latest information. The storm has been downgraded once again. It's also a little bit further off to the west. A lot of rain still to come with that, but details will be ahead in the second part of the AccuWeather forecast.
All right, Amy, don't disappear on us. We'll see you in a little while. Coming up, an update on the power outage in Manhattan, and this is what it looked like on the darkened streets of the big city. Most of the power has now been restored. Con Ed says most people should have electricity by midnight tonight, but the utility is still trying to figure out what caused the outages.
Where's her money?
New York's best problem solvers fight for you and get results. Call or email 7 on your side for help. And we're always listening on social media because Channel 7 is on your side.
Managing lipids, like very high triglycerides, can be tough. You diet, exercise. But if you're also taking fish oil supplements, you should know they are not FDA approved. They may have saturated fat and may even raise bad cholesterol. To treat very high triglycerides, discover the science of prescription Visipa. Proven in multiple clinical trials, Visipa, along with diet, is the only prescription EPA treatment approved by the FDA to lower very high triglycerides by 33% without raising bad cholesterol. Look, it's clear there's only one prescription EPA Visipa.
Visipa is not right for everyone. Do not take Visipa if you are allergic to icosapent ethyl or any inactive ingredient in Visipa. Tell your doctor if you are allergic to fish or shellfish, have liver problems or other medical conditions, and about any medications you take, especially those that may affect blood clotting. 2.3% of patients reported joint pain.
Ask your doctor about Visipa. Prescription power, proven to work.
Here's me, Bob, sleeping like a baby because my Scarlet bedroom is only $16.99 complete. And here's me having a nightmare in my competition's similar-looking bedroom because it's a whopping $25.37. My Scarlet Complete Queen bedroom with your choice of dresser with mirror or vanity and bench, still only $16.99. Go with their vanity. And the price jumps to $26.34. My Scarlet bedroom with Bob's discount, only $16.99.
Get Bob's discount!
Baking cookies, yeah, it smells great, but it doesn't sell houses. Me? I use Spectrum. We've got a remodeled kitchen, smart appliances, and what? Who left these here?
You're doing all that?
All at once?
Oh, yeah. It's a Spectrum neighborhood. Why don't we check out the living room?
Get Spectrum Internet, delivering more speed, more consistently for better surfing, streaming, and gaming. Switch now for $44.99 a month. Call 833-278-4499.
Notice the high ceiling. Works every time.
Get Spectrum TV with more free HD and more free on demand from $44.99 a month. Call 833-278-4499.
The houses I've sold with Spectrum, I should be giving them a commission. I'm not going to do that.
Get Spectrum TV and Internet today from $44.99 a month each with no contracts. Call 833-278-4499.
Tonight's sports report is sponsored by BMW. Now through July 31st, receive a credit of up to $4,500 on select BMW models. Visit tristatebmw.com for more details.
We have been covering that blackout that had much of the west side of Manhattan in the dark. This is what folks saw underground tonight. New Yorkers, tourists alike, that blackout that affected parts of Midtown and the Upper West Side. There was partial subway service during the blackout, though it was extremely dark on the platforms. Trains that were running were packed. Contributing factor, we're told, may have been some surge pricing with those ride-sharing companies.
Yeah, public safety was the big concern tonight because the platforms were dark and the trains came to a stop and they pulled into the first subway station that they came to and conveniently and safely led people out. So glad to hear that nobody was hurt tonight. All right, stay with us. We're coming right back.
Thank you to everything that gets in the way of our love for driving. Because you inspire our innovations and challenge us to make the ultimate driving machine. Summer starts now. Free into the BMW Summer on Sales event and get up to $4,500 credit on select models now through July 31st.
We are sisters, and we just moved in together.
Why Alyssa and Aaliyah chose Fios.
We stream so much. A lot of times Alyssa is watching TV on her laptop, using her phone, also using her tablet.
I am really good at multitasking. Because I'm awesome.
A little.
The best internet is even better at our best price. Switch now and get our fastest speeds available, plus a free Chromebook on us. That's Fios.
The winner of the 2019 Motor Trend Car of the Year and North American Car of the Year can now be on display in your driveway. Now lease a Genesis G70 from $319 per month for 36 months. Hurry into your local Genesis retailer for this exceptional offer.
Let it go, let it go.
Let yourself go.
Let it go.
You've never seen Frozen like this.
Let it go. Let it go.
Great seats available now at frozenthemusical.com.
Bethpage Federal Credit Union is more than just banking. We're part of the neighborhood, working with you to enrich the lives of the communities we serve. Bethpage Cares, our charitable giving and community engagement program, has been investing in local programs from Montauk to Manhattan for more than 2 decades. Our Bethpage Federal Credit Union employees volunteered over 4,000 hours of community service in 2018. We're committed to doing more this year and beyond. Visit our community page for more information. Together, we can build the future of tomorrow today.
When you're the most awarded SUV ever and the most capable, changing how you're seen is as simple as changing your scenery. Have it all at the Summer of Jeep with a great deal on Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Well-qualified returning lessees get a low-mileage lease on the 2019 Jeep Grand Cherokee for $219 a month.
Tuesday night, celebrate the magic of The Lion King. Exclusive behind the scenes, and for the first time, see an unreleased scene.
How'd you do it? How'd you do it?
The Lion King, Can You Feel the Love Tonight with Robin Roberts, Tuesday at 8, 7 Central on ABC.
We're back alive now. You're looking at a news conference. This is the head of Con Ed, Governor Cuomo with them. We're going to listen in to what they have to say, and we'll be back with you in just a second.
All 6 networks and all 73,000 customers have been restored. We'll be continuing to work through the evening to establish full reliability of our system, and then most importantly, to identify exactly what caused this disturbance. Our efforts to date have been focused more on restoration and isolation of potentially faulted equipment than it has been on understanding exactly what occurred. But that's going to start right now.
So that everybody's back on now. All
customers are restored at this point. Yes.
Now, Mr. McAvoy, the governor put out a statement tonight saying, whatever the explanation, this is unacceptable.
Well, let me make a statement first. It's good news that we heard from Con Ed. I just flew over the city, and most of the lights are back on. That's clear. It's also clear that not all the lights are back on. There are a lot of traffic signals that are out. Still, the roads are chaotic. So we would not encourage New Yorkers to go out if you don't have to go out. Let all the power get back on. Let's stabilize the situation because it is chaotic now on the west side, certainly. I want to commend all the emergency workers who did a fantastic job. The NYPD, the state police, the state power officials, all the emergency workers. This could have been much worse. When you're talking about a city like New York with a significant piece of the city basically suffering a blackout, that could be a very chaotic situation. We saw the exact opposite, actually. We saw New Yorkers at their best. We saw New Yorkers helping other New Yorkers, stories of New Yorkers getting out and managing traffic at intersections, New Yorkers helping neighbors, New Yorkers bringing neighbors who had medical devices that needed power to places where they could get power. So I applaud all New Yorkers. When things are at their worst, New Yorkers are at their best, and they were at their best tonight. As I said, job one is restore the power, get it up and running, and make sure that's 100%. Job two is finding out exactly what happened. I'm going to go with Mr. McAvoy, and we're going to look at the first transformer that blew tonight. We have to make sure the system is designed in a way that this does not happen. When you are talking about a blackout or a potential blackout or significant area of the city having a blackout, you are really dealing with potential chaos and public safety threats, and the system has to be better than that, period. And we're going to work with Con Ed, but that's what New Yorkers deserve, and that's what New Yorkers will get.
Governor,
I'll turn it back.
There's been a lot of discussion in the country about our aging infrastructure. Do you believe that could have played a role in this, and how can you address that when you're dealing with the electric grid?
Yeah, this is not going to be a question, I believe, of aging infrastructure. Con Edison routinely upgrades their equipment, changes their equipment. The maintenance level is very high. The Con Ed is a utility, but people pay for their power, and that funding goes to Con Ed. And Con Ed, one of their missions is to make sure the system is always 100% operational. All the backups are in place. The best design is in place. So if one substation fails, you don't have a domino of other substations. This is not the first time that I've been with Mr. McAvoy going to look at a substation that failed, right? I've seen this movie. And the system has to be designed in a way that one substation can fail, but it doesn't domino, it doesn't ripple, and we have to have a system that has redundancy and has backups. We were lucky tonight, and again, the emergency workers did a great job, but we don't have any reports of people stuck on subway trains. That could have very well happened. People could be stuck in elevators. People could be in hospitals or nursing homes that don't have backup generators. So this is a potentially very dangerous situation. And we have to make sure it doesn't happen again. And the system is designed in such a way that it doesn't happen again.
Are you saying anything to New Yorkers tonight? Should they keep their power down? Should they not use as much? Is there anything like that there's a potential for any other further problems?
Yeah, Con Ed has said it was not. Con Ed has said it was not a load issue. We're not in the summer months. There wasn't a high use of air conditioners. It was basically a quiet, fairly quiet weekend night for New York City anyway. I would say stay off the roads. There are many traffic lights that are still out, and that is pandemonium, even with New Yorkers at their best, and they have been. It is still chaotic, and until the system is up 100%, it's late at night, stay in, go to sleep, but let the system become fully operational before you venture out.
So to clarify, the power is completely available?
You'd have to ask the mayor.
The power is completely available except for some traffic lights. Just to clarify that everyone's back on?
That's correct. All the networks, all the power supply to the customers that were interrupted has been restored.
But some of those traffic lights are still out?
I'm not familiar with the condition of the traffic lights. It's not unusual that in some local cases, some buildings may have to reset some of their equipment to restore it to service. But the supply to all of our customers has been restored.
Is Con Ed telling people?
Yes, that's correct.
Is Con Ed telling people anything that they need to worry about going ahead? I mean, tonight, tomorrow, should people be worried about any particular problem?
No. We will be working to establish the normal levels of reliability, the defense in depth that we normally have now that we've restored the lights. We are not advising customers or asking them to use power any differently than they normally would. As the governor said, we do not have any indication that this was a load or a power usage issue.
Governor, have you been given any update as to what could have caused the sound of explosions in this area? Because there are residents who say just before the power outage, they've heard a sound of explosions, and Con Edison has said they don't believe any manhole explosion could be connected to this. Have you been given any update?
No, but we'll look at the transformers. Is it possible that a transformer, quote unquote, blew? Yes, or a piece of electrical equipment blew and made a noise. That's possible, but when we go back now and do an analysis of the system and what failed, we'll have a better answer.
Can somebody explain why is it so difficult to understand, what caused this, or even the vicinity? Because I think it's still in question where the vicinity of this cause happened. Why is that so difficult?
Really, it is not difficult. We knew what areas were lost, and I believe we communicated well what the parameters were, what the boundaries of the outages were. It changed over time. Everybody didn't all lose power at 6:47 because some items became overloaded, and we had to actually take action to shut off power to other customers to prevent equipment failures. But over that period of time, we knew very well exactly what customers were affected.
John, do you already know at this point, is there anything that would indicate risk?
You've been listening to the head of Con Ed as well as Governor Andrew Cuomo updating New Yorkers. The big news out of this is that the power has been restored to everyone, just about everyone affected by this outage tonight. We will have much more news when we come back.
Up for anything? Nissan is. And Nissan SUVs have advanced tech to help guide you to the perfect spot. Stay connected. And take any trail. Nissan SUVs. Up for whatever you are. For a limited time, get a low $209 per month lease on a 2019 Nissan Murano.
Beautiful morning, oh what a beautiful day. Well, I got a beautiful feeling, everything's going my way.
Oklahoma, reinvented for the 21st century, now on Broadway.
Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me. My lover stands on golden sands and watches the ships that go sailing.
Welcome to the next level of casino resort luxury, where it's not just about winning, it's about owning the night. It's more than just another evening out, more than another predictable getaway. Refresh all of your senses and indulge in every taste, whatever you're in the mood for. Just outside New York City, but high above the rest. Resorts World Catskills. Playtime elevated.
Dear mean streets, I see your steaming potholes, your snarling traffic, blaring sirens, and crazy on-ramps. You're my kind of town. Let's do lunch. Saturday works for me. Later, RAV4.
Lease a new 2019 RAV4 with all-wheel drive for just $219 a month, or get $1,250 finance cash when you buy RAV4. Find yours at buyatoyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
A unique dual language program in a Westchester County school. Tiempo, Sunday morning at 11:30.
As you just heard from Governor Cuomo and Con Ed, power has been restored to all 73,000 customers who were in the dark for most of the night.
A lot of those customers were by Madison Square Garden. Eyewitness News reporter Jim Dolan live outside the garden with an update. Hey, Jim.
Yeah, Joe, the lights came on about 11:35 or so tonight at the Garden and in the neighborhood. So these folks have power back. It came back on too late for Jennifer Lopez fans. They had packed the Garden tonight to hear her sing. They did get to hear her sing 3 songs, and then take a look at this. About between the third and the fourth song, the lights just went out. Most of the lights anyway, and folks had to make their way out of the Garden without escalators and without air conditioning. It was getting mighty hot in there. Let me tell you a quick story. We met a woman tonight who in 1977, when the lights went out that night, it was her birthday, she was at a show called Oh Calcutta with the man who would later become her husband. Tonight, she was at this show. In both shows, the lights went out. She was so happy to have 2 great New York stories.
It was so cool. I was in Times Square. I thought it was part of the scene. I was taken out of the theater with a flashlight. I was dating my husband, whose father lived in Gramercy Park Hotel. And all I kept telling to I had to walk.
So you've been telling that story now.
For years.
For all these years, and now you have...
I think it's cool, and I say it's my party, so let's celebrate.
Well, she and her girlfriends were definitely celebrating tonight. The husband got to stay home, by the way, tonight, so he was not here for the big power outage. 42 years apart, she has 2 great New York stories. Again, nobody hurt getting out of the Garden tonight. Reporting live from Midtown, Jim Dolan, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Jim. That's a great story.
That is a good story. Yep, it's her party. All righty, let's turn it over for a quick check of the weather. Meteorologist Amy Free is in tonight for Jess Smith. Hey, Amy.
Hi. We do have temperatures cooling off into the 70s overnight in the city. I want to make a mention of what's happening, of course, in the Gulf, making a lot of headlines across the country, is what's happening with all the rain that is still offshore. We've been talking about how much flooding Barry has already caused for parts of the south, and you can see well offshore there's still a lot of rain to come, and the latest track of Barry actually has a lot of that rain falling off to the west of New Orleans, so parts of Louisiana, but stretching all the way up into Arkansas and even getting into parts of East Texas. So this is going to be a couple of days still till we have to contend with this. The storm was downgraded a bit, a little further pushed to the west, of course, but over the next 24 hours we're going to see a lot of flash flooding problems. There have been warnings there tonight, so still a lot to pay attention to coming in from Barry and what's left of this tropical system. All right, here we are with temperatures dropping to 80 degrees right now. Overnight, we'll fall into the 60s and 70s, and you can see very quickly we warm up tomorrow once again. The humidity is bearable, but the number gets maybe a degree or 2 higher than it was today, flirting with the 90s, and tomorrow isn't the only day. The AccuWeather 7-day forecast has us warm for the next several days. Monday is pretty similar, mid-80s, not bad at all. Still sunny, though. Sun to clouds on Tuesday with a high of 89. That's also the day that will... By Wednesday, 92. Storms are possible Thursday. Both those days, we could be getting some leftovers from the tropical system, Barry. We'll talk more about that as we get closer to it. But some hot weather coming our way, and the humidity will back by the middle of the week. Sandra, Joe, back to you.
All right, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
We're ending the show tonight with the good news. The power is back on for all those Manhattanites on the Upper West Side. That is good news indeed. Thank you for staying up with us. I'm Sandra Bookman.
And I'm Joe Torres. A long 5 hours it's been here in New York. Updates tomorrow on Eyewitness News in the morning, beginning at 6 o'clock. Mayor de Blasio letting us know via tweet that he will be back in the city tomorrow, returning from Iowa. Thanks for staying up with us. We'll see you all tomorrow night.